Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Pick the brain. I called Coach Saban, what do we got to do? And he kind of gave me the next idea, next. So guys brought in, we can make this run. Other teams have done it. We've got the capability to do it.
The stops, the transition efficiency. Anytime that we weren't efficient in transition, these guys playing against that smaller lineup, Tristan, all the guards knew that the ball needed to go to Donovan tonight. And that's the beauty of the team. But there was a special level of basketball that we were playing.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Shane's trying to get me in a bad mood to start off this morning by playing some stupid Danny Hurley.
Well, Shane's still in a little bit of a funk.
I think maybe he's trying to bring everybody down to his level.
Didn't love the internet this morning, so he didn't get the open he wanted. I actually think Shane, kind of sounds like an excuse. Maybe you probably just didn't get your work done. That's kind of what I think.
We all know those this morning?
Yeah. Well, the internet's fine.
My internet's okay, but I wasn't here. I don't know.
But do you know what leads me to believe that?
What's that?
He responded to a text at 10:10. And
I'm trying to play. Trying to play the game call right now, and it just gives me the circle thing, the stupid circle thing. What the hell's up with the circle thing?
It's called loading, Shane. I know you're not.
I need to go to bed.
I've been recording I've been trying to record clips for like 30 minutes
at a decent level.
Yeah.
Shane probably not so much. So I imagine he's staggered in. I'm like 10:10. Shane, what are you doing up? But I didn't want to ask another question to prolong it. I just was like, I got the response.
I got done. Just got done watching NASCAR.
Oh, that's not a good reason.
Well, NASCAR was probably about as exciting as basketball yesterday.
NASCAR was bleeding boring.
Well, that's my point standing.
When did you become British, Shane? Did you say bleeding boring?
It was bleeding boring.
Did you watch too much like Downton Abbey over the weekend?
I don't know, but the circle thing's still going around.
The Dodgers came back.
Oh, they did, yeah.
Yeah, Cardinals, for whatever
they were down 4-2 late.
They stay on the struggle bus against them. Maybe more historically, I'm traumatized. It isn't the playoff shit where they could get bounced by the Cardinals.
I don't really know what you mean about the basketball yesterday though, because the season ended on Friday, so I don't really know.
You recognize what we're doing?
Yeah, I thought these were just all exhibitions at this point.
Isn't it crazy how in 2 games you saw 2 completely different versions of the same person
in Tennessee?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it made me pretty mad.
Yep.
You also saw 2 completely different versions of how we're going to call post fouls, but that's all right.
Oh, that was so.
Can we talk about this without me sounding like sour grapes?
No, you control that.
Okay.
Because if you don't want to sound like sour grapes, you totally can control that.
Okay, I'm going to try and get into this conversation. Obviously, I'm not thrilled about how Friday night went. Okay, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I want to start with this. I don't think it was inconsistently or unfairly officiated. Can we start there?
Is this rhetorical?
No, I'm asking if that's an okay place to start.
Sure.
I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, Tennessee got all these calls, Creighton didn't get any calls. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when they choose to officiate a game in a certain way, it is a dramatic disadvantage for Creighton. And that's how they chose to officiate the game on Friday. Okay. I happen to also believe that the way that they chose to officiate the game on Friday is terrible basketball.
Why? What? Like you have to be specific.
Sure. So the allowing of, first of all, let's start with Kalkbrenner because that was the major difference we saw between Friday and Sunday.
Yeah, they let him play yesterday. In some instances, it wasn't. So yesterday, go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish. But yesterday, I felt like it was a tale of a couple of different things. Yes, he went to the foul line a lot, but there was a lot they didn't call.
Right. Well, so my issue with the post defense was you're never allowed to put 2 hands on a guy in the post ever. It's an automatic foul every time. Tennessee, that was their MO.
Whiskey.
Not whiskey, although the refs might have been a little drunk. Okay. Just kidding, mostly. It was like 9 o'clock. It's late. It was 10 o'clock for them. It was late. You never know. Those hotel lounges get lonely. The way that they called that game, I think, is bad basketball because it restricts freedom of movement. And at the end of the day, basketball is a movement game. Yes, you want physicality. Yes, you want defense. But if you're actively restricting players from moving on the offensive side of the ball, you're kind of defeating the purpose of basketball. And the reason I know this is because the NBA literally changed their rules to allow more freedom of movement. They're like, hey, the point of basketball is for people to move freely. We're not allowing that currently. We have to change our entire rule book in order to allow it. That happened in the mid-2000s when no one wanted to watch NBA basketball. That's a lot of what we get now, depending on your crew, depending on what they decide to call and how they want the game to go. That's a lot of what you get now in college basketball, and it's not a very good product a lot of the times. It's just really not.
Okay.
Like, I have no interest in watching a 28-23 score at halftime. That's not good basketball.
So that would have been UConn and Illinois.
Yeah. And there were a lot of those in that neighborhood.
Dude, how about that Coleman Hawkins experience?
Yep. There's a reason Illinois fans do not trust the guy.
Well, I felt like, so what do you think? So let's go back to Tennessee real quick.
Okay.
Do you feel like, how do you think Volunteer fans feel about Ziegler?
I would imagine they're very hot and cold with him.
Well, just how Friday and yesterday went,
just because of how he is. I would imagine they're very frustrated, probably more so than people from the outside. Honestly, it's probably a lot like my Ryan Nembhard experience, where from the outside, you're like, oh, look at these numbers. He's really good. And then you see him in a big game and he plays well. You're like, oh, Ryan Nembhard, great. But when you're watching the day in, day out experience, you're like, yeah, he had the stretch for like 8 games where he shot sub 30% and was taking double-digit field goal attempts every night. And he's turning the ball over, and he's not really getting into offense. And he's taking these 12-foot floaters that make you want to bash his head in. Like,
by the way, did you see Doncic yesterday, Luka?
I saw the first quarter.
The underhand scoop shot from about 17 feet away.
Yeah, well, I mean.
No, like he pulled a George Gervin from about 17 feet out. Okay, I'm telling you, like, I was like, what is this dude doing?
I mean, listen, he was feeling it. He was in his bag, like, whatever. But again, Ryan Nembhard, not Luka Doncic. Different guys.
How weird are the Rockets?
They might be good.
And they completely are capable of wetting the bed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe that's their youth.
Well, they're children, yeah.
But that is, man.
I think they're all younger than North Carolina.
So, wait, are they playing?
They no longer. No, because the season's over, remember?
Yeah, well, and it's just how you drew it up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, NC State, Alabama, Purdue, and UConn.
Yep. Nope. Everybody had that.
So you still, the string continues. Don't have lower than a 6 seed to make the Final Four, right?
No, because NC State's
Oh, they're 11.
They're 11.
That's right. I kept thinking they were a 6. They opened as a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good basketball team.
No, I don't care if they win the national championship. That's a bad basketball team.
I thought about this yesterday as I was kind of going back and forth about all my ACC takes. You do realize that NC State played on a Tuesday in the ACC tournament.
Yep. It took them 5 games to win.
I'm just saying, like,
they had to win 5.
They played on a Tuesday. They went into that thing with 17 wins.
Well off the bubble.
Yeah.
They weren't even.
I mean, that is incredible.
They were like on the NIT bubble.
Is that not incredible?
I think Kevin Keats might have got fired if they lost on Tuesday.
There was probably it was a little Brad Brownell moment.
There'd have been a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they're in the Final Four, which again kind of goes back to this thing I went through last week, where these deep tournament runs, you shouldn't hire coaches based off of them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're a little, I mean, not a little, they're a lot fluky, especially just one of them, right? UConn, not fluky. They've won, 10 tournament games in a row now. Like, that's a really good basketball team, obviously. They also went 34-3 in the regular season. So this is not an aberration. But when you see, a UNC Wilmington where Keats was at before, you see these random teams, VCU, Shaka Smart, they go from first 4 to Final Four, right? Like, maybe that's not an accurate representation of who that coach is. Maybe they just got on a heater for a couple weeks. Like, that's a thing that happens a lot. Nebraska, back 14, was the hottest team in the country for 3 weeks to get into the tournament, right? If they have that 2 weeks later that team might be in an Elite Eight or a Final Four. And you're like, well, does that change who Tim Miles is as a basketball coach? No. They just caught the heater at the right time, right? I don't care what happens. NC State's not a good basketball team. I don't know if Kevin Keatts is a good coach or not, but that's a bad basketball team.
So the funny thing about kind of watching this is we asked the question. This was probably a month ago. We're like, hey, who's probably the worst team that you could see winning a national title?
Oh, yeah. I was asking everybody that question.
Remember my first response?
I don't remember.
First team I said.
Was it? Oh, shoot. Who was it?
In the ACC.
Was it Duke?
It was Duke.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So you watch them play, and I get it because I've seen it all year.
Mm-hmm.
You're not enamored by almost anything.
Any of it. Yeah, I was going to say any of it.
And you're like, Filipowski, like first rounder?
Kind of expected more.
Like you have kind of, I won't say most of his career, but there are these stretches where you're like, yeah, I don't know, man.
You're like, that's it. That's all we get.
I could see him just kind of getting pushed around.
You know who it kind of reminds me of? This is a super weird comp. You remember Henry Ellison from Marquette?
Yeah, but that was a minute ago.
Yeah, but a guy that, I mean,
Ellison was probably more a little more athletic.
Yeah, but like similar-ish size, played games in a similar way.
Yeah.
But when you watch Marquette, you're always just like, where's the rest of it?
Don't you want more from him?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm watching Ellison, I go, where's the rest of it? I'm watching Filipowski.
So you watch him, and it's like,
the rest?
Gosh, he's a really tough matchup. You know, because he's highly, highly skilled.
He should be a tough matchup.
But I just don't think he
he allows himself to not be a tough matchup.
He just goes through these stretches where you're like, just give me a little more.
He's a cruise control guy.
Like, get out of neutral.
Yeah.
And they shoot a lot of jump shots,
Mm-hmm.
so they're just kind of finessed by nature.
And they're high variance by nature.
And it's like NC State just kind of pushed them around.
But I don't look at any of those guards and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good
It's
guard.
hard to I get it. Like, because that's probably the first time a lot of people have watched, except for Duke fans, like the Duke Carolina game.
Yeah.
Like watch Duke's backcourt. That was kind of always a thing. But they were so young, they had a stretch where they were playing well, and I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah, because
if Proctor and
McKewon,
I'm like, if they play like this, it's
Roach starting to play. I mean, Roach is older, obviously, but Roach was starting to play a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I watch them more casually than you do, so I catch the Carolina games. I catch Arizona really early in the season, whatever. So probably 4 or 5 times throughout the course of the year before the ACC tournament, and I just kind of sit there and I'm like, there's not much there.
I know, but they just kept winning. So I was like, I could see that being a team that I don't think is very good.
Yeah,
that could draw their way into a national championship, and they almost did.
They probably should have been in the Final Four. Like they shouldn't lose that game to NC State.
Yeah, but they could have. Houston's like, hold my Gatorade.
Yeah,
they were living on borrowed time after Shed got hurt too. So
absolutely.
I mean, not to say that game was going to have a certain outcome, but you played almost half the game without your
best player,
a really good player. So
and you lose by 4, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it was, 54, 51 or whatever. But then conversely, we watched the game yesterday, and it was a decent weekend because it seemed like people wanted to come upstairs and watch TV and not so much migrate in the basement. After about the 7th straight possession in a row where Edey touched the ball in the post, Micah was like, oh my gosh, do something different. And he'd scored he's probably in the 20s and 26, 27 point. And about 3 minutes later, man, he went to the foul line. This is probably his attempt in like his 14th or 15th free throw because I think he got into the 20s. Gail was like, I can't watch this anymore. I was like, what? You don't want to watch teams play through the post? I mean, that was a concerted effort to just dump the ball in the post. And how the game was officiated in the paint was crazy.
Yeah.
I could see where Rick Barnes is probably losing his mind.
Rick Barnes doesn't get to lose his mind
over the foul situation.
He doesn't get to lose his mind.
But like, what did you see? Like, why were you mad at Rick yesterday?
No, I'm just saying he doesn't get to lose his mind because he has chosen a style of play
Yeah, they play like that.
Which he knows
They play like that.
That if he catches the wrong crew, or maybe a crew that actually calls a basketball game, that he's gonna they're gonna call 40 fouls on him.
Hey, when's the last time you saw 3 seconds called in a basketball game?
In I see it maybe a handful of times a year in college.
How many times did you want 3 seconds called on Edie?
Well, I was mad at Tennessee, so I didn't want to call on Edie at all.
You're still mad at Tennessee?
Yes, because I hate that style of basketball.
I'm not mad at Alabama.
I hate that style of basketball.
No, I get it.
That's all it is for me.
I get
it. Because in a vacuum,
would you have liked to seen James hit some shots?
I would have liked to see those misses on Friday. That'd have been terrific.
Dude, Ziegler, he was so hit and miss. It was just weird. I felt like, but the Tennessee-Purdue game, the crowd made that game seem
more exciting
than it really was.
It wasn't. That was kind of a snooze fest.
When it was long.
Yeah, it dragged on because of all the fouls.
And I was just like, I think this is good, but maybe it's not.
I'm just saying, like, if you're Rick Barnes and that
their crowd was
or you're
unbelievable.
Danny Hurley and UConn's not as bad as it now that they've actually got basketball players that can play basketball instead of just a bunch of guys. Like, they're not nearly as bad as it now as they used to be, but I still hate Danny Hurley forever. But if you coach that style of basketball, you don't get to be mad when they actually call you on it. Like, that's a risk you're taking going into that situation. Like the same risk that Creighton takes when they say, hey, we're not going to foul, and then they get out physical in a game. That's the risk you're taking with the way you decided to coach. And that's fine, but you have to understand that's a risk, and you don't get to be mad about it later. Like, that's what you got into the situation. You got yourself into that situation.
Yeah, I was not overwhelmed. And I don't know what we're going to see in the Final Four.
I don't either.
I mean, are we just waiting for
UConn, Purdue?
UConn and Purdue?
I think so. I think UConn's just going to house everybody. I really do.
They're hard, like, obviously pro guys helps.
Yeah. Klingen's going to go top 15.
They good defensive rim protection.
Castle's going to go lottery,
and
which I'm not enamored with Castle, but he's going to go lottery.
So that it's safe. Like that's a pretty good defensive team.
Yeah, I mean Newton's a really good college basketball player. I don't know if he's an NBA guy.
And it's weird because we got into this great debate yesterday morning on the heels of Rob Parker saying that Caitlin Clark could play in the NBA. Turn into this.
Why do we always do this?
Turn into this big. And this is a national guy too.
No,
like that's
yeah.
I mean, the Odd Couple that show has been around
forever,
a long time.
It's been
and
bad.
he said this out
bad for a really long
time.
He
said this out loud, and it wasn't tongue in cheek. So, but anyway,
it's been a bad national show for a really long time.
So we used Newton as an example. I said, you guys got to understand something. This isn't male or female related. I'm just going to give you the facts. There's a lot of really, really good college basketball players. Trey Alexander, Wayne Ellington. I remember Adonis Jordan. Guys that were good guards, better than good guards.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to hear it with McKewon, right?
Yeah.
Good guards, high functioning, power six
college guards. Yeah.
That they question whether they can handle the ball at the NBA level.
Yep.
Right. Like, just imagine, like, these are really good. I mean, good men's college basketball players.
Tyshawn Alexander.
Yes, right?
Really, really good college basketball player. Probably should have been Big East Player of the Year over Miles Powell because he actually played both sides of the ball. And, like, was a fringe NBA guy.
I'm like, there's
Kyrie Thomas.
There's
fringe NBA guy.
There's no way she can handle the ball well enough.
Also, all of these
dudes
are 6'4",
and she's
6'5".
10?
That's honestly, it's the size thing more than anyone.
I'm like,
more than anything else.
How do we even get to this?
I don't know. I just know that.
What numbers will they do tonight?
Oh,
it's gonna be astronomical.
I think they might crack 10 million.
You think?
I think they might. Between the Kim Mulkey story dropping on Saturday.
What is wrong with her?
I don't know. That story was a nothing burger.
It was just a profile piece.
It was literally all these things we had already known about her. She probably got mad because they talked to her family and then it set her off.
Yeah.
Right? But
because she doesn't
talk to her family.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you don't get to control who people talk to that you don't talk to.
Yeah, I remember Aaron Rodgers going through this, and I'm like, Okay.
I'm just saying, for the fit that she threw about it,
Yeah.
I thought she like helped cover up the sexual assault scandal at Baylor or something. Like I thought she did something horrifying. Like I thought she maybe buried a body or something.
I think she may have wondered why it was necessary.
Okay, but that's what I mean. That's what.
No, I get. I'm just.
But to have to do 2 press conference takeovers for this thing that is basically benign, like the accusations of being homophobic have existed forever. That's just part of the deal with her, and everybody knows it, and her players know it, even the ones that are homosexual, and they go play for her anyway, right? So like that's not new. That was the most like incendiary piece of information in there, and that's 15 years old. That's it. And then the rest of it was like, okay, she holds a nasty grudge, got it. She's estranged from everyone, got it. Basically, the headline should have been like Kim Mulkey, tough hang. That's it.
The thing that bugs me about them is like they think everything's about them, and
that's how those people are.
But
that's how those people are.
But sometimes it's not. Like for Flau'jae to be mad that people don't care that she's a great rapper and a basketball player, like that's not novel.
No, nobody cares.
Okay, cool. Like I'm not mad at you for it, but I'm not back patting that either. Right? If you actually like Angel Reese is okay. Like I get she was highly touted coming out of high school.
And she had a really good tournament last
year.
year.
But just because I say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I don't get the hype. That doesn't mean now you're not good at what you do.
Yeah, it does make you a hater.
It's just
but they acted like Angel Reese was in the same category as a Caitlin Clark or a Paige Becker, and like that she's not.
She's not.
Right? Like it's okay just to say out loud that you're not that person.
She's not.
And it doesn't all of a sudden become this thing where, we're hating on LSU or we're hating on Angel Reese. Or we don't like her antics. It's like, no, it's just she's not quite as good at basketball as people want to say she is.
I'm just all of a sudden, and maybe it shouldn't be all of a sudden, I'm just sick of hearing about it.
Oh, it's super annoying.
Because last year, I didn't have any problems with the kiss blowing, the ring. I didn't have a problem with
none
any
of
that. I'm like,
and neither did Caitlin Clark.
I'm like, listen, men do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
No, it's
a lot of talk, a lot of trash. It's fine.
And I'm just thinking to myself, but now I've hit the fatigue button.
I mean, it happens with everybody, right? People got sick of Curry. People got sick of Curry doing his stuff, which I never did because I love him. He's the best.
But that's different.
Perhaps our greatest living American.
So I'm not talking about like on the court antics.
Okay.
I'm just talking about like you always needing to be in something.
So like Draymond.
Good example. LeBron.
Yeah. Like, always like why is it always gotta be something? Why is it always gonna be something?
Like let them have their
It'd be like LeBron being mad that we don't recognize his chops as a movie producer. And it's like, hey, we don't care. We're here for the basketball. I don't care that you produce movies. Like, good for you. Have fun with it. But, like, I don't care about your mixtape. Dame Lillard, I don't care about your rap career. Like, just go. Like, I'm here for the basketball. That's it.
You really think they're going to do 10 mil?
I really think they might.
That would be incredible.
I know. I mean, I don't think it's any lower than like 8.
Okay, so is that a 7:15 or 6:15 tip? 6:15.
So it's 7 East Coast, which is good time for them.
Yeah, that's going to be right in the heart. I don't know about Monday Night Television, Shane. We'll have to get to that after the break on what they actually play on over-the-air TV.
We'll set up the show as well, probably at some point.
Is Monday night a big TV night?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll have more. Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back.
Defending off a screen, Spence with 3. Rebound, Caravan out. Diarra, a triple. Free throw line. One of the top players in the state of Texas. El Paso High School player now joins this team, and he's a first-team All-America this season.
23 all, 1 point. Okay, we're
They scramble, loose ball, clock running. They will fire it out to Girard. Steps to his left, shoots a three, hits it with 4.3 to go. Bama throws the home run to Estrada. Run clock, 2-1, layup good. 1.9 to go. Tigers inbounded. Clock hits 0, and let's get out of here and go to the Final Four.
Lawyer the rebound, 5 seconds left. Lawyer will dribble it out. And the next stop on the Purdue redemption tour is the Final Four. As an elite defense, they need a stop here. Jones for 3. It's good!
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Scramble, loose ball, clock running, then clock running.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Clock running. They will fire it out to Girard. Steps to his left, shoots a three, hits it with 4.3 to go. Bama throws the home run to Estrada. Run clock, 2-1, layup good. 1.9 to go. Tigers inbounded. Clock hits 0, and let's get out of here and go to the Final Four.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I just bit my tongue if you're wondering what just happened there.
Hello, friends.
That's
that's the worst.
Yeah. You bite the tongue or you bite the cheek a little bit. And you're
the cheek, you're going to get a repeat.
Yep.
performance.
Yep.
The tongue, you just got to gut it for a second.
Yeah, I think we're okay. We're live on the Pillar Exterior stage. I'm fine. I wouldn't. It'll be fine.
You gonna be all right?
You gonna be all right?
You seem very hurt right now.
God, we spent too much time together.
Well, the thing about
You seem very hurt right now. You gonna be all right?
I knew when you told me yesterday, I'm like, okay, maybe he's joking, but I didn't think the Tennessee Creighton thing would still sit with you this long.
Yeah, I mean, the season's over. It's going to sit with me for a while.
You're like, yeah, who cares about basketball? You're going to talk basketball.
We talked basketball the whole first
I'm
segment.
like, well, what about DJ Burns? The world is first now introduced to him. And I still remember, I'm like, that's why I walked in here. I was like, why do people act like DJ Burns is just now playing for NC State? We like previewed the matchup of DJ Burns, not me and you specifically, but remember when
last year,
Creighton played NC State, and we're like, oh, DJ Burns is kind of a handful in the post. Like, how are they going to guard him? He's a blow-going guy, kind of thick.
Which is typically the type of guy that Kalkbrenner struggles with.
Yeah, and they did.
He did fine. Yeah,
and it was like,
but that's the guy that
remember Tennessee, and then Winthrop. He had Winthrop. The Big South was representing with DJ Burns, and now like that's the. It's like and I get it, right? They're in 11.
Yeah,
right, and he has a vending machine business, so it's like. So this is funny. This is what happens.
That's like a classic. Don't get high on your own supply, though, man. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I know that he's on struggle bus now. Just listen.
Like the big fellow in the vending machine business is a little too easy.
I'm way childish, right? So I remember when he was at Tennessee, and he used to have like this little box cut because he reminded me. He kind of looked like Zion Williamson.
Oh yeah.
This is way back when he was at Tennessee. I think he was wearing like 32 or something. Some random. Google that. See what he was wearing. Say like DJ Burns, Tennessee. And so I would look at all these before and afters.
32. You're right.
And I would watch him.
You're a weirdo.
This is old. Like I just remember doing this.
No, I mean just pulling the number out. Like you're a weirdo. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, but so like. North Carolina State had beat Carolina a couple times. And so, of course, I would watch press conferences.
Look how skinny he was at
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. So, and he would like pull his hair. He would take his hair out. So, you know how he has it tied up? Like he would pull it down. So a lot of times he would do interviews and his hair was long. And I was like, did that guy play? Oh, wait a minute. That's Burns. His hair's just not pulled up. Because one of the first things that he does when the game is over
take his hair out.
Is he takes his hair down.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, he's a handful. And he's one of those guys, because I've seen him do push-ups on Baycott. I watched him go for 20-some against Baycott on a random Tuesday night in the ACC. But when he gets going, he'll shoot just about any kind of shot.
Oh, yeah.
Scoop,
he'll get in his bag.
Runners. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's one of those crafty big guys that were on the court that
push shots.
Oh, yeah.
He loves the little weird push shots.
He's that dude.
Yeah.
And I think I think he felt like, yeah, Flip isn't really interested in putting any sort of hands on me, so I'm just going to go to work.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of post play. I'm like, is this a throwback in basketball this weekend? I didn't love it, but I mean, it's whatever. I was certainly overwatching Purdue.
I appreciate their commitment to the game plan, though.
I do too, but
I'm not saying it's super fun to watch, but
yeah, I just don't want to watch a guy shoot 23 or 4 free throws.
Yeah. I would have been okay if the guy on Friday that they were guarding shot 23 or 24 free throws.
So did you, again, I am weird. You watch how he holds the ball at the foul line? His hands have to be massive.
Oh, Edie?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a grapefruit. Like he looks he looks like he's about to shoot a softball.
Yeah. And so we rewound it. Not that we were making fun of the air ball, but we're like, gosh, a lot of those seem to have the same trajectory. Why was that one so short? And it was how it was.
If it comes out of his hand,
it's how he held. Yeah, it's how he held it. It's just, I don't know. It's fascinating.
Like I don't know if you've ever, you throw a baseball sometimes, and every once in a while it gets stuck in your hand funny.
Yeah.
And you either spike it or it like sails on you.
You know the cool
That's
thing?
a lot more similar to how Edie shoots a basketball than it is the rest of us with normal sized human hands.
Yeah.
And
I remember Shaq used to.
That's why he used to do the fingertip thing, right? Because it would get stuck in his palm.
I do think it's something we don't don't pay enough attention to because he gets fouled a lot
Mhm.
and he hits the ground. That's a lot for a big guy.
Yes.
He is. I have a lot more confidence than he gets when he gets off the ground
Mhm.
than some other big guys that have been over 7 foot. Because like when those guys fall down, it's like, oh geez, are they going to get up? Oh,
Yeah,
are
they-
there arches? Is their foot broke? Are their feet hurt? Or like
they tweak their back.
yeah,
Yeah.
he seems to be
Reasonably athletic. Like
right.
that's the way I
would agree.
I'll
I
even
would
use-
agree.
I'll use Kalkbrenner for example. Sometimes it takes him a long time to get off the ground.
He's always last.
Yeah.
So
And
and
I don't
I
think
love the guy,
yeah.
but that's a pet peeve of mine. Like
Yeah.
it just is in general. Ask anybody I've ever like.
But I think he gets off the ground as fast as he can.
I always say, get off the ground. It's not a nice place to be. Or
For
I'll
sure.
say, nothing good happens down there.
I think Kalkbrenner gets off the ground as fast as he can. It just takes him a long
Yeah,
time.
I always kind of wonder, like, is he okay?
Yeah, I don't think he's loafing it. I legitimately think it just takes him that long, which is, I mean, you got a guy in LA, Anthony Davis hits the ground all the time.
Oh, and
it takes him a while to get up. And he's more athletic than like an Edie, right?
Every time.
It's weird.
It's like, so, because there are a couple times yesterday I felt like he landed awkward, but he got up.
Yeah.
Edie's
remarkably
okay.
durable.
I like the body type.
For a guy that big and that you don't look at as overly athletic, right?
Yeah.
You don't look at him like you do.
Well, it's hard at that size.
For sure. But I mean, he actually moves pretty well. But it's always going to look lumbering because he's enormous, right? He's not going to look like one of these 6'11" guys that's super athletic. But I'm genuinely pretty impressed by, and it's a weird thing to be impressed by, but getting off the ground quickly and not just lingering there. So many big guys just stay on the ground.
How about Purdue's commitment to excellence where they couldn't throw it in the ocean? So they're like, all right, we can't shoot it from 23 feet. How about just shooting it from 2? And they like, that's hard.
It is.
It takes a tremendous amount of discipline to sacrifice your game and just do the same thing over and over. Like, I actually think there's something to be said for that.
100%.
It's like a team that can run the ball 30 straight times.
That's exactly the example I was about to use. I
You know-
was just going to say, the incredible discipline it takes to just ram it down someone's throat and not try and get fancy and understand, right, that I could probably go play action here and I'd probably beat them, but we're going to save that. We're going to hold that in our back pocket till we really need it because right now we're still getting 6 yards a pop.
Yeah, it was just so. I didn't like. What was the best game?
Yesterday or over the weekend in general?
Over the weekend.
I don't
know. I think you may have to go back to, and it was a Thursday, Friday thing, but you may have to go back to Carolina, Bama.
That was a pretty good game. That was a good game. But both those teams want to play a certain style too.
Because I was like, what are we going to see? But yeah, if it's Purdue and UConn,
well, that's kind of
how that game is going to be officiated will be
going to be enormously important.
Yeah, because UConn, you see that backcourt. They like to touch, they clutch, they get underneath you. And, Purdue's backcourt, for as maligned as they were, they hung in there yesterday without shooting the ball well.
They were dramatically better than they were last year. And I think they're more committed to the Edie thing this year than they were last year too, because I think there were times last year where they wouldn't have done what they did on Sunday, where they would have just been like, oh, well, it's our turn to shoot now. And I don't think that's the case anymore. Coming up here on the show, we've got Sam McKewon at Omaha of the Omaha World-Herald coming up at 8 o'clock. And then we've got a ton of time. You can give us a call, 888-638-4876.
I think Vers is calling us at 8:30, right, Shane?
That is correct.
That's right. Vers is going to call us at 8:30 from Chicago.
Yeah, who knows?
I have no idea what condition he'll be in. Looking forward to it, though. Russell Baxter will join us to talk a little NFL at 9:45 from FanSided. We've got to talk about some text messages here as well. I think we're going to do that next here.
Hey, and
what's up?
Apparently Drake May's good again.
I guess.
Even though nothing's happened since the
Literally
season ended.
not a thing has changed.
Apparently May's going to go 2 again.
Drake May back being good at football, and Michael Penix apparently still pretty athletic. He's fast, like real fast. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back.
is an elite defense. They need a stop here. It's good!
Caravan out. Diarra defending. Off a screen. Spins with 3. Off.
We will be back.
This team, and he's a first-team All-America this season.
23 all, 1 pull loose.
And the next stop on the Purdue redemption tour is the Final Four.
A triple. Free throw line. One of the top players in the state of Texas. El Paso High School player now joins this.
Is the Final Four.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Warrior the rebound. 5 seconds left. Warrior will dribble it out. And the next stop on the Purdue redemption tour is the Final Four.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here live on the Pillar Exterior stage.
Did you enjoy your weekend?
You know, it was okay.
It's quiet.
Yeah, I tried to relax a little bit. It's been a little hectic the last couple.
Mine was extremely quiet.
It's good.
Yeah.
Little R&R.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never too relaxing when you have kids, but
yeah,
I didn't have to leave the house, so
that's a plus. It's positive, not running everybody around.
Saw my mom for a little bit yesterday. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, we chilled. We just chilled.
She thinks Natasha's extremely pretty. I think she must have seen her on Facebook.
Probably. I agree. I also think she's pretty.
She's like, oh my gosh, his wife is so pretty. I'm like, okay. Good afternoon. You got something else you want to talk about? Yeah, apparently you guys are Facebook friends. Shane's got company now.
We are.
Like he just smiles. They
hear the words.
They have a good Facebook. relationship.
Yeah, she likes my posts and comments on my statuses. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Okay.
She seems to be very active on Facebook.
Is that right?
Apparently so. I
She
mean, at
lives
least with me and Ravi.
lives
Ravi
by her
and
house, lives by herself, Shane, in a big old house. She got, needs some time.
Gotta stay busy.
Yeah, stay
Gotta
busy.
stay connected to people.
And I appreciate that.
That's what Facebook is for.
I was cleaning up her dishes yesterday after dinner, and she goes, "Would you stop?" Like she's, I don't know, like maybe she's like low key mad.
Yeah, a little exasperated with
I'm
you.
like I'm gonna leave you with all these dishes, and she goes, "It's therapeutic. It's fine." I'm like, what kind of therapy do you need when you're by yourself? Like, is it all the days therapeutic? Like, what is it about dishwashing? But her carpet downstairs still has all the vacuuming lines in it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's weird.
Got to.
I feel like I can't even walk in there.
Gotta take the shoes off. Gotta be real careful.
I come by it honestly.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
yeah.
fair.
The
That's fair.
OCD. I come by it.
Doesn't take a long time to figure out where it came from.
It was not long at all. We sit next to each other, you'll know. And as I get older, it's even worse.
Yeah. You keep leaning into it a little bit.
It's even worse. That's why nobody at my house likes me. It's okay. I'm gonna be all right.
So I wanted to get into a story that KTV dropped Friday after we got off the show.
Oh Lord.
Listen, it's pertinent news.
Okay.
What?
Because I know where you're going.
Well, yeah. So KETV, shout out to our friends at KETV, did a great job sourcing this information on an open information request. They got a hold of some text messages between Governor Pillen, some of the regents, and one Trev Alberts.
Nice. Now we're back to Trevor.
And well, it's it was a like a Freedom of Information Act. So I feel like I have to use a government name just to make sure we're all on the straight and narrow here.
Yep.
Nothing would please me more
than to run away like a thief in the night, right, Trev? So I thought these texts were interesting. I'm sure you familiarized yourself with them. So let me give some context here. We knew that there were some communication between Trev and the regents and the governor and whoever else late in the hours before he took the Texas A&M job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't really sure what those conversations looked like. We weren't really sure what went wrong. It appears what went wrong is that Trev just wasn't responding to anyone. So I don't know if conversation is the right term here. So much as Trev has made up his mind and was just like, deuces. I mean, that's what it seems like from the text. And obviously we don't have a full picture. We don't know if there were phone calls happening. We don't know if there was in-person stuff. But judging by the text messages, this dude, by the time we thought he was still reconsidering things, had already decided to peace out.
So
that's the vibe I got.
So, yes and no.
Okay.
And it's funny that this came up because I text one of our colleagues that does kind of what we do. And I happened to hear him say some things about meeting with the Board of Regents. And I didn't want him to, how can I say this? First of all, I didn't want him to be wrong. Like, and sometimes we are when we're speculating.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's all.
But I couldn't tell if it was, if he's being matter of fact. And I text him. I was like, hey, it's not meeting with the Board of Regents right now. That's
not what happened.
But he did talk to a couple of, and I told you this the day of, right? Did I even told?
I think so.
Like went above the Board of Regents, and I was like, and his response was, "Wow, above the Board of Regents," and I was like, "Well, yeah, technically, right? Especially when it comes to finances, like the ability to
get stuff done
fiscally,
yeah,
right." So
maybe not elected ahead of the Board of Regents, but influentially.
Yeah. So the people that he was having the conversations with this is my opinion now. I mean, you're probably not going to get this. What I think happened was he knew how the Board of Regents felt, and some of them were operating in the dark up until
Wednesday, whatever that day was.
100%.
Like we knew,
like
Kaporik knew.
I think,
and maybe one or two regions knew.
Correct.
Prior to Wednesday. But I think a lot of them experienced that real time like we did.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, you're right. But that's a problem unto itself too.
Yes.
Like the lack of communication amongst the BOR was kind of a thing. Now, maybe it was asked to be kept.
Yeah, like maybe it's a Trev situation.
Yeah, I don't.
Like,
Yeah,
hey,
I don't.
I've
So
got
I don't
this
know. So right, I'm
relationship
saying I'm
with
not.
These couple people.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I'm not going to judge that because the person I was having this conversation with seemed as though he wanted kind of a pound of flesh that not everybody
from the
was.
Board of Regents.
Not everybody was made privy.
Mm-hmm.
See, that just shows you that. I'm like, nah, I wouldn't say that, right? Sometimes you'll say something to somebody, and it's like, hey, this
Between
is what
you
I'm,
and me.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking about. And then it
I'm gonna go have
escalated
this
because I do
conversation.
know that Kabork asked him to not go to
Yeah.
and at College Station on Saturday.
It's entirely possible, right, that the people that he talked to didn't think this was a serious threat.
No, they did. So what I think he tried to do.
Okay.
Yes. You're talking about initially.
Yes, until
yeah.
it was too late.
Because when you told me, I was like, I didn't think it'd get to this point. You know what? Like I was genuinely shocked.
Right. So it's possible that the people that he told didn't feel like it was necessary to inform everybody else because they didn't think it was a real problem.
Yeah. Although once he got on the plane over the weekend,
probably need to have a conversation.
Okay. So what I think happened was when he was having conversations on the day that he left,
Wednesday. Yeah.
It's just total 100% speculation, but it seems to me what he was trying to do was get some assurances from
money people.
Yep. That he would have protection isn't the right word, but he wanted a couple of assurances going forward if he was going to go back and deal with these people. Right. It would be similar to you don't want to talk to me about the job. You don't want to talk to Sasha. You don't want to talk to Chris. So you go right to Bill. And you're like, I know Chris is going to say this, Sasha's going to say this, DB is going to do this, but this is what I'm asking from you. That's what I think happened. So he wasn't going to deal.
Right.
He didn't want to, wasn't going to, or felt like it was
unnecessary.
Like he was peeing in the wind.
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day,
so that's what I think happened.
At the end of the day, if the money people say yes, then usually everybody else will get in line.
Yep.
So he was just jumping to the front of the line.
Yeah.
Which I understand, right? But I want to go into some of the text here a little bit because
I think that was some of the lack of response because I think some of that he had heard before.
Probably, but I also think I don't think this is a good look for Trev.
It's not. It's 100% not.
Because a lot of what the text messages say, we know to be true, right? At one point, I believe it was Regent Claire says, we've approved everything that you've brought before us, which is true. He said, I know there's some situations that, that have been difficult, whether with Ted Carter, or once he was already gone. We already knew about that, right? They mentioned, hey, I think we're going to have a great president soon, right? Less than a week later, that candidate's named. Would that time frame have changed if Trev didn't leave? I don't know.
Probably not.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
No. I don't think it would have been named.
You don't think they would have named within a week? Fair. Okay. But
again, just my opinion.
And we have no way of knowing, right? We can't unwind that clock. But you have a president. Claire says, I think we're going to have a great president soon, and I hope you would give him a chance. That's the thing that happened. It ended up being the candidate that we all believe that Trev wanted. Didn't have a chance to work with him. They approved everything that he ever brought before him. His issue wasn't really with the board in terms of the stadium project, right? This sticking point on the stadium project. It was with the money people. So I don't know if that's what you mean by certain assurances.
That's exactly what I mean.
Right? It would be like, hey, I need assurances that you're going to write these checks for this thing. And I think at the end of the day, I think this was the biggest sticking point, was the people that write the checks didn't believe in his version of the stadium project the way he did.
Yes and no. I get the sense, again, this is just my opinion. I got the sense from talking to whom the people that I could, that the one thing about the Board of Regents thing and the president was even some of the people that he was talking to didn't believe that it should have taken a national search this long when you have a sitting president in your own backyard that's very capable. So there were some people that I think that he talked to that felt the exact same way he did.
Is that just confirmation bias, though? Are you talking to people that have the same opinion as you to make you feel better?
I don't know, but that's probably safe just because you're probably only talking to those people because you probably have similar sentiments.
That's fair. But also, national searches can make sure you have the best candidate.
100%.
I mean, it can cut both ways for sure. Sam McKewon coming up next.
We will be back. At Sports Radio. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we're joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you guys?
Good.
April.
Are you like? This is April showers, right? We need a lot more of this. So you like all 4 seasons, guy, or where do you stand with that? You usually always give me a weather update.
Yeah, I like all 4 seasons. I think I think this is true of a lot of people. As they get older, they tend to appreciate summer and spring more than they do winter. But I like all 4 seasons. I'm growing on summer. I used to love winter as a kid. I think as you get older, you get tired of the shoveling or the snow blowing or whatever you do and the driving. So, I'm fine with with some showers. My wife hates the rain. She doesn't like it at all.
Is she kind of a heliotrope, or is it just the rain in particular?
Doesn't like getting wet.
Yeah, no, I get. Hey, so it's weird, Sam. Like, I rather be cold than wet 100% of the time, but I don't mind the rain if I'm inside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like rain. So I have no issue.
The rain is a lot worse to play in than the cold.
Is it?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if anybody's gonna agree with me, but it changes your gear, you're heavy, the ball. I'd much rather be cold.
That's understandable. Yeah, what I'll say is that when it's chilly and rainy, that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
It gets in your bones. It feels very unpleasant. Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Sam, we were just talking before you came on here about the text messages that got reported from KETV regarding the Trev Alberts situation. Do you think we learned anything from those interactions, or I suppose lack of interactions between Trev and Governor Pillen and some of the regents?
I think what we learned from those is probably what we already knew, which was that Nebraska did not want to lose Trev Alberts. There was a sense of wanting to keep him around. Figuring out, hey, let's figure this problem out. Obviously the presidential search was part of that, based on the text message, I think, from Tim Clare. I think there was a little bit there. In my conversation with Trev, I think I have a pretty good sense of the entire issue. And so, I don't know that I learned a lot. And I think that the presidential issue is only part of it. It's not the entirety of it. And, and I think there's
agreed.
There was an opportunity, I think, again, all of Trev's kids are out of high school. You usually make one move after that happens. This is that move. There's issues that Nebraska is going to have to navigate over the next 5 to 7 years that are not necessarily things that he could control or any AD can control, related to the AU and related to other campuses.
Can we say that part out loud? Because for a month or two, and then years after Perlman left, we kind of poo-pooed the AAU, and we said this 3 weeks ago, Sam. I said, you never want to be the only one that's not doing something. And people are like, I don't buy that one bit, and this, that, and the other. Sounds like that status that designation was going to be pretty important.
It's important, especially when the football team hasn't been to a bowl game in 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, if the football team was playing like Clemson has been for the last 8 years, and Clemson obviously isn't in the Big Ten.
Or Oregon, who's equally as dicey.
Yeah.
You've seen. I brought that up a couple. I'm like, has anybody paid attention to Oregon? Like, how are they keeping their designation?
Right. but they play football.
Yep.
And,
I get it. I get it.
Those Phil Knight checks keep
so that's
clearing.
the other thing is the Big Ten, Nebraska football, even though it's still a good brand, and does draw pretty well, it hasn't been great, and it hasn't really even been good. And so the need to get Nebraska back to where it needs to be, or where it wants to be in Big Ten football is urgent, very, very urgent. And that's the other component here. You don't have AAU membership, but your football team's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
And so and a lot of people, again, as we cover the program, we don't necessarily think about all the other dynamics. We're so busy, pumping up the next roster to be the best of all time and this to be the best culture of all time. And then they win 4 or 5 games and nobody understands why. The reality is you got to be good relative to your peers. And I think there's been seasons where Nebraska football, like 2021, was probably a pretty darn good football team in a different league. But in the league that they're in, they were 3-9. And so you've got to figure out a way to get your team relative to the peers that are around you to be better than the record that they've had. And that's the challenge that Matt Rule has ahead.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, as you kind of, at least last thing from me here on Trev, as you kind of look at the landscape that Nebraska has moving forward, obviously just shortly after Trev leaves, you got a priority candidate for president in place. You've got a new AD in place as well, who we heard from last week. Is there an argument to be made that Nebraska is maybe better positioned moving forward than they were before Trev left?
Well, I mean, I think in some ways they could be, yes. That there's I think you're going to have a very motivated athletic director, very motivated, to do whatever needs to be done to take care of, to help the football program and to remove any obstacles that might be there. So I think he's going to be a motivated guy, sure, and that helps, I think, in some ways. And depending on how you see that football stadium project, whether that gets the full green light or they reduce the project or whatever you want to see them do. I think Dan is going to, again, I think he's going to be really, really motivated, and not because it's his alma mater, because it's not. I think he's going to be really, really motivated to help Nebraska and to make his own mark. This is a destination job, and I think he knows that, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think some of it is not in his hands; it's in the football coach's hands, and more to the point, it's in the quarterback's hands. And so there's a lot there that's really interesting. It puts a lot of pressure on number 15 and to be everything that everybody hopes he is, because I think there's still question marks about whether the team that surrounds the quarterback at Nebraska is going to be good enough. And so we'll see. I mean, it's an interesting spring camp in that way, and that's kind of how we're gauging it. It's been 25 years since Nebraska's won a conference championship. It's the 25th year anniversary of the 1999 team. Pretty interesting.
Let me ask you something here, Sam. Do you think we're ready, or can have, or not even will we have to have the conversation that if the quarterback battle is a battle, or it's prolonged, or the coaches don't say what we want to hear, to have any Dylan success like validated or spoken out loud, like, hey, he's great? Are we capable of even handling that? Because what if other people have just gotten better, right? Because that's a thing, right?
Right. You're talking about Heinrich getting better?
It could be Heinrich, it could be DK. I do feel like if it's Harburg, then we're gonna be like, oh geez, man, Dylan isn't very good. But a couple of things can be true at once, because what we don't know is emotional temperament.
Right. Yeah. I don't, for no period of time do I discount the possibility that Daniel Kalen can be a very good quarterback here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was an Elite 11 quarterback. Didn't necessarily have the best senior year, but as you've explained before, he was kind of running around a lot because he didn't have a ton of protection. And historically, Nebraska pundits, not you, but they like to they like to rip on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I've never quite understood that. I think that's more of a trend in the last 10 to 12 years.
100%.
Football and basketball. Like, yeah, these kids aren't very good.
Yep. It's almost like we know too much, right? It's like the quarterback or people working their way up to the draft. The more we see them, the more we pick at them. Other people like them, right?
Yeah. It's know too much and desire to be too. And this is again not you. Desire to be too big a part of the success story. They weren't very good, but fortunately they knew me. That kind of thing.
Oh, 100%.
So that kind of stuff, handlers and whatnot. Just like strange.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I think there's some of that. But I think Daniel can be very, can potentially be very good. Obviously, they didn't give him the Elite 11 designation because he was going to Nebraska. I mean, that's for sure. I didn't, that's not why they gave it to him. They never given it to anybody else. So he did a good job out there. And now people are tough on Dylan. There's just a lot of pressure on Dylan, and I don't know that he feels it.
Do you know why? Do you know why I really asked the question? Because this is the coach in me. This isn't like saying a guy is better than another guy or not, right? I've been through a ton of springs. I know Nebraska's quarterback situation. And this is my coach's hat. What you could see happen is without guys being really taken to the ground, some of the intricate blitz packages where they can get after a guy and bury him or put pressure on him. All these quarterbacks have some skill sets where they could shine, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's no real fear of like getting knocked on your ass or hurt or guys turn loose over an extended period of time, you may have some live periods, but if you're not doing that to your quarterback all the time, you can kind of get a false sense of security about what a quarterback's about, because that's why you really never know until they actually play a game. So what if Nebraska why I say all this to say, Nebraska feels like they may have been burned with Sims, right? Like he looks like this during this or any other quarterback. It doesn't just have to be Sims. But hey, when they start getting hit and you got to snap the ball for the 15th time, you don't feel like maybe that's why they could slow play it too.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know what I mean?
For sure. I do. I don't think fans would I think people would be like, well, if Verol is good and Kalen's good, well, yeah, all the better. I don't think people would necessarily hesitate at that. Because again, once Verol was committed, it was like, well, I don't know. I mean, Daniel Kalen can come along too, but he was a pretty highly touted quarterback, going into whatever. And so, I think there was, I just know that there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on the quarterback position. And I'm also going on what the track record, and this is something that I do think that Rule can fix, but simultaneously, has to fix, is that the rest of the offense has to be good.
Yep.
Too consistently, Adrian Martinez, got a lot of crap for, and I know he's not, but he's still playing in the USFL. He is not terrible. And he got a lot of.
He was fortunate with that knee. I hope. Yeah, it's good to see him come back.
Yeah.
To the game the other day.
It was he got a lot of heat for stuff that ultimately wasn't entirely in his control. If you put that quarterback one of these quarterbacks is going to get picked in the first round of the NFL draft here in a month or 24 days or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
One of these quarterbacks is going to be picked in the first round. It's not going to be very good. And we're going to realize, oh, wow, they were surrounded by an all-star team.
Yeah, we always say.
We're going to learn that. I don't know which one it is. I have a hunch of who it's going to be. But, it's probably not going to be Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. But, is Bo Nix really that good? We're going to find out because he was surrounded by an all-star team. Is J.J. McCarthy, Jim Harbaugh is, loves J.J. McCarthy, but could any of quarterback have won 12 games? It's very possible that a lot of
Cade McNamara did.
won 12 games. Right. So, there's just some things that Nebraska's got to get better at that it has not consistently been good at, and that's the responsibility of the coaches that they have on hand and the offensive coordinator calling the play. So, we'll see how it goes. Not one person that I've talked to has any question about the defense. That's what's notable. The defense is going to be good. Everybody trusts that. That's the culture. The question is, can the offense be good? And they're going to need the offense to be good in order to win the number of games they want to win. Iowa's the only team that has cracked that code of having horrible offense and playing, still winning games. It's unlikely that two teams will be able to pull that off. And so Nebraska's got to get better at scoring points, and we'll see if they can do it.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, obviously the quarterback position gets a ton of eyeballs. I know a lot of people will be looking at wide receivers and running back as well. Is there a position on the offensive side that you mentioned is so critical that you feel good about? Because the answer I've heard so far this spring would have been the very last answer we heard last spring.
I think the offensive line can get better. Yeah. I think there's some nice options in the interior. They seem to have some depth there. It's offensive line play is not something I fully understand, and I think it's hard to understand because it's dependent on the scheme and it's dependent on the people behind you and on a bunch of other things. And so, I do think it's a decent line. It appears to be healthy for the most part. And, Ben Scott's healthy and Bryce Benhart's healthy and Prohaska's healthy. So, that seems like it's going to be a decent unit. I do think the wide receivers can be better. And it does appear that they got two transfers who have some size on them. We'll see with the running backs. I think that's the one where, you're watching and wondering if they've got the right guy. I think of Michigan State and how they changed in the 1 year they got Kenneth Walker, and he was he's a good player in the pros too, because he could make guys miss, and you couldn't. The first guy didn't tackle him, and then Michigan State was able to win some games in part because they had a running back who could make guys miss, and so I think Nebraska could use one of those guys. We'll see. I think a lot of people that have been covering the program for a long time are kind of in prove it mode. It's hey, we'll sit back and wait. And the defense proved something last year. The offense was the worst offense they've had in 50 years. Again, people don't like saying that because it seems like a rude thing to say, but it's the worst. And so, and yeah, relative to the Big Ten's a great defensive league, but it was a bad offense. So, what do you do? It's got to get better.
You guys are just listening real time. I go back to the quarterback thing with the offensive line and wide receivers. I wonder if some of that decision, because you talked about, Sam, guys needing to be better around, the team has to develop and all those things that are true. I wonder if you take a look at that quarterback spot and you say, okay, who needs the fewest things to go right, or who can do the most with the least? Well, is that the same person? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I would assume that if all things being equal and everybody's healthy,
who needs the most things to go right to function, who can operate in chaos? Is that the same quarterback?
Right. I think again, it kind of depends on what you're looking for from a quarterback.
Because that might be a thing, right?
It could be a different thing in 3 years too. It depends on. But I think Dylan is the leader in the clubhouse on both accounts. Although, I don't know how much Harvard has progressed. They're not going to show us practice, or they're not going to show us that much. And, it's a pretty, tightly lipped culture. And so we're not going to know a lot. Then we'll get in the spring game and we'll see how it goes. And, we all thought coming out of the spring game last year, oh, that Jeff Sims looks pretty good. And then you get into the season, and whatever happened to him happened. Like, he just didn't seem like the same player, and things went downhill. So
we're pretty we're pretty fickle with that though, because remember when Casey only threw like 4 passes and everybody's like, I don't get it. And then like the season went on and it's like, oh gosh, we need that guy. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are the takeaways at the quarterback spot?
For sure. Yeah. It'll always be a question of, how much could Casey have helped last year's team? And I'm not misremembering though, right? We don't know how to take spring quarterback play.
No. But we are definitely
he threw one out pass. What's all the fuss about? And I was just like,
I know. Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, Nebraska just decided, hey, we think Justin's going to be better than Casey Thompson. And they were right about Casey getting hurt. I mean, he gets hurt. So he got hurt at Florida Atlantic, unfortunately. But, there's no, between the two quarterbacks being healthy, there's not any question which one would have been better. And that's a mistake that, again, like, I think Nebraska's owned that, and I think they've moved on from it. They've tried to do it in a way that, that doesn't overplay the miscalculation. But, we were writing about the offense after the second game, and like, this is a problem, and the turnovers are a problem. They didn't get much better. So, that's something they're going to have to figure out, like, right now. And it seems maybe a little rude. Like, most of the stories that are coming out are about, how great everything is over there. But I don't think Nebraska's football staff feels that way. I think they feel the urgency, and they want to get a heck of a lot better in a very short amount of time, and they're working really hard to do that.
Sam, got about a minute and a half here with you. Isn't that kind of always part of the challenge with Nebraska, though, is weighing the optimism that is oftentimes, especially this part of the year, felt by the state versus the urgency that's actually necessary to reach that level?
Yes. I think maybe the difference this time is that I think the coach in charge is sincere in his urgency and desire to get better in a short amount of time. And I also think now, because of just a few things that have been said, everybody's starting to look around and say, okay, got to get better now, because the bigger Big Ten is going to make this hard. We cannot afford to wait around any longer. Got to make a mark, and got to press your case. And so I think there's a sense of urgency now that just didn't exist during the Frost era. And honestly, it burned Frost. Like he just didn't ever turn the corner on stuff. But I think Rule will turn the corner, and then it comes down to how well the players play, because Rule can only do so much. He can't play the football game. So we'll see.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time as always. We will talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
DB, when we come back, I have a question for you about, you got my wheels turning a little bit with that Casey Thompson spring game talk. I have a scenario that I think might be somewhat likely that people are not going to enjoy very much.
We're just never right? We didn't like Kate. We weren't overly impressed. And then we turned out he wasn't too bad. And we love Sims, and he wasn't very good. So I think spring quarterback stuff is hard unless you're hitting those guys.
I still remember thinking that Frankie London was the second coming, and here we are.
It happens.
I think a lot of people did. Coming up next, we will get more into this here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here's a drive into left field and deep. Back goes Langford to the wall. Gone. 3-run homer, Christopher Morel. Cubs lead 3-0.
3-2 to Saya. Line drive, base hit, left field. Tachman is in. Mastroboni on his heels. Saya Suzuki provides some insurance with a 2-run single. 8-5. Cubs lead it.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here from the Pillar Exterior stage. And joining us now all the way from hopefully sunny Chicago, Illinois, is our guy, Matt Verol. Verz, what's going on?
Good. How we doing today?
We're all right.
We're all right, Matty. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good thus far. Last night was pretty calm. The Easter holiday got us thrown off a little bit. We got in a little late. I was actually at the Northwestern baseball game freezing my cojones off. I was on TV, though, so that was cool.
Hey, did you give the thumbs up?
Did I give the thumbs up to who?
Oh, like when you caught the camera panning, did you know that the camera
number one?
Yeah, no, I said thumbs up, buddy. The thumbs up.
I was sitting there watching the game, and I didn't. My mom tried to do me a solid. Shout out to Nance. She was like, "Game starts at noon." I didn't even see that message. And so I got there at 1, which was normal time. So they were already a couple innings in. So I just worked down behind home plate, and I sat behind home plate. And I'm sitting there, and then I start getting texts and tweets, and is this you? I was like, oh, Christ. They were down, so I was like, I'll just move after this half inning. And then they started playing. They started doing well. I'm like, well, Superstition's going to win this one. I can't move now. So, yeah, Grand Island's own Cole Evans, I think he's going to start to pay me to come to games because I think he made 1 out in the 2 games that I was at.
Yeah, he's slowly coming. That they're just starting to stack wins, man. And people are going to knock their schedule a little bit, but the non-con they scheduled how they had to, and it sucks that playing Big Ten conference games actually drops your RPI.
I know it is tough, but that's they got to make up that K-State game that got snowed out,
and I think that just got canceled. That wasn't postponed. That was canceled. I think.
I thought I talked to a couple parents and they thought they were going to try to get it back in, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at that because now you have me.
It says canceled on the schedule,
I knew it was canceled.
I wonder if they might try and work something out midweek because they need that game.
100%. 100%. Hey, so it's supposed to rain there early, but it's an early open. It's 1:20 today, right?
Oh, it's 1:20, baby. When to go down on the home opener. But yeah, here's the thing: it's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain.
It says, yeah, good one. It says the total accumulation is like 0.75 inches. So, yeah, I've sat in sprinkles here. I've sat in snow. It's fine. We'll all be okay. They better play this thing.
Oh yeah, how steamed would you be?
It happened 2 or 3 years ago. We were sitting at Rizzo's eating, and we just were sitting there, and then everybody, like the bar staff, was like, "Hey, they canceled the game." I'm like, "What?" It's like 40 degrees outside. But they canceled. There's no rain, no nothing. They're like, "Yeah, they canceled it." I'm like, "Ugh."
Where'd you eat? Where have you been eating?
We rolled last night. Paulie and Al Moore got in a little bit late. John, a new guy on the crew, came in, and he and I went down. We watched some basketball here, and then we went over to the Drake and had a couple drinks. And then Rosebud Steakhouse, which is right by our hotel, we hit that up last night. We got in there, and it was good. John got the biggest. If you ever go to Rosebud Steakhouse, what'd you get, a giant steak sandwich? Ribeye sandwich? Ribeye sandwich, you could probably eat for 2-3 days on that thing. I mean, it was,
me or normal people?
No, you. Like, I'll put it up against anybody. I looked at it and was like, damn, I'm glad I didn't get that.
Really?
Because I just went passed out. Then we went and had a couple more drinks, and it was, with it being Easter Sunday, a lot of stuff was closing down early, so we'll get her going today.
So is that is it the Rosebud on Rush or Randolph?
Randolph. It's right by there's a Hilton where we're staying. Hit the bodega up on Saturday, got us loaded up. We're having a couple cocktails already, so
what
has begun.
What are we starting with?
We got a little bit of a blend of vodka, Pedialyte, and vodka.
Vodka.
Dehydrating.
I love the early start because there's no D. It's just vodka, huh?
Yeah.
Pedialyte and vodka.
Always had a screwdriver already, so John's lagging behind here.
Are you guys? You're not going to take the train. You're Ubering, right? You're just right down the street, aren't you?
Well, Limo Lou, we tried to get a hold of Limo Lou, but Paulie was worried about something. He had something going on with his family, so we didn't get a hold of Limo Lou. So yeah, we'll probably just Uber over. But yeah, we got to be at Rizzo's. We're meeting the rest of the crew, the people that live here that we've met over the years. We're meeting them, I think, at 10:30 at Rizzo's. We got a table over there, so we'll get her going. Then somebody may have acquired tickets to the Maker's Mark room at Wrigley Field. So.
Yeah, must be rough.
Okay.
Little nervous though because your boy hasn't drank the dark liqueur in quite a while.
Don't do it, man.
Went through a rough phase there where that got me a little not nice, a little violent. So,
dude, who you telling?
Nervous. Little nervous there.
Yeah, you remember the stories of the old bat juice? Like, I'm out. I am out.
Been off the James B. Beam for a while, so yeah, we'll see.
Are you happy with the start or no? I mean, Rangers, they're going to be right there in the thick of it if their pitching holds up. Are you feeling okay about the start?
Somebody's got to tell me what gets done in spring training, because I don't think the training part of it is much. I think it's just training. Or just spring.
Maybe stretch a few arms out. That's about it. See who can see what 23rd, 24th, and 25th guy can make your ball club.
Stretch a hamstring. Like Steele's my favorite guy. Like I like how he pitches. Like he makes it an aggressive event. When you're going to bend over to field a ball on the first baseline and your hamstring like gets shot out like Ryan Terwilliger running a 40. I mean, it just.
Hey, how about the Pirates off to a 4-0 start? Good thing there's another 158 games, isn't it?
That's true. I think this is kind of the Pirates' trend. They'll just start hot like this, and then by next week they'll be 4-9. So
they do have some stud young arms, though.
They do, and their best one isn't even on their team yet.
I know. How about Skeens just casually touching 101?
So it's ridiculous.
Just no big deal. Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean, it just that's when you get a big athletic human being going, and he has the utmost faith and confidence in everything he does. Like that guy doesn't waver. His mind is probably what is the best part of it, because he doesn't even. There's zero doubt in his mind he is going up and dominating. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But just pump like that.
Not to be outdone by guys like Jared Jones. They got some good young arms. Well, Matty, have a couple for me. Maybe one or two for Ravi.
None of that dark liquor though. I'm
you know me. You've known me over half my life, Matt. You know there's no way.
I don't think I have a choice.
I mean, if you got to take us to the Maker's Mark room, yeah, you don't have a lot of choice. You're in it.
I'm gonna have to gear down a little bit. Like I'll hit a pretty good pace early. And then once we get into there, if it does start raining more than a sprinkle, I'm gonna have to get in there and just take my time.
I'm gonna go ahead and see. You may have to let it touch your lips a little before you get in there.
Oh no, I'm drinking it. Like it's gonna happen. It's just the aftermath. It's just the aftermath of what happened. That's the part I don't know.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on the news blotter in Chicago.
And the good thing is 3/4 of the guys you're rolling with carry enough cash to buy half the city. If you get in trouble, you'll be fine.
Well, probably the best thing about it now is they're a little bit older, so they ain't fast no more. So if it does go down, I'm outpacing them. Like I will be gone. The only one I got to worry about is Mikey Hughes' kid, Will. He's a tennis player at Wisconsin Whitewater, so I ain't catching him, but I can beat the other one.
And he's new to the game, right?
This is Will's first go. Just turned 21 in December. So it'll be Uncle Bird's got him a little gift for the trip back to Wisconsin Whitewater, too, so we'll see if he likes that.
It's quite the initiation.
Yeah, so much for his tennis. Hopefully he's got a little downtime coming up.
Yeah, this will be a celebration. This will be a celebration for Will because he's got a squad, I guess, up at Whitewater. So if you want to bet tennis, bet Wisconsin Whitewater.
Oh my God, you degenerate, man! All love, man.
D3 tennis.
Be safe, buddy. A tradition like no other. All right, buddy.
See you, Verz. Have fun. Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. We will be back.
Screen space with 3. Rebound, Sheridan, out to Yara.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and live on the Pillar Exterior stage, where we're brought to you by the Omaha Supernovas. Go check out supernovas.com to get tickets, because this Thursday the Supernovas are back in town against the Columbus Fury. They won both of their matches here at home this past week, Thursday and Saturday. And after a quick trip to Vegas tomorrow, they will be back in town Thursday. What month is it? April 4th.
Just started today. Do you have any bad jokes or fools things that you want to do?
I
Because
don't.
it's a terrible holiday.
I don't.
Is it really a holiday?
It's not a holiday. It's just a thing.
Yeah, April Fools.
Yeah, it's not a holiday. Where nobody celebrates April Fools. They do stupid stuff, but I'm not about that.
Like San Francisco makes a move for Kyler Murray.
Pass.
Wow.
That was always a day that you get that as soon as you walked in the door, or it was the day before that you get it. Like when we were at the actual radio station, you get this great big long email saying you can't do this, don't do this, don't think it's going to be funny to do this, because just don't do it. April Fool's Day, just don't do it. Just leave it alone.
Chicago Bears.
You can go to supernovas.com to get tickets to the Omaha Supernovas.
Trade off the first pick.
April 4th. Against the Columbus Fury. Go check it out, supernovas.com. No, there was one. I think people kind of try and do stuff on Twitter sometimes. You get the fake Wojs and stuff like that. Try and do their April Fool stuff. I don't get the get the point.
I don't either.
Like I don't understand what you get out of that. Kind of like what we talked about on Friday about people that just openly root against other people when they're watching games and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, what do you get out of that?
You don't understand?
Like what's the benefit to you there?
You're just being a jerk to be a jerk?
Yeah, which I guess that's some people's, that's their vibe, I guess, which is fine. But I don't get it. It's not for me.
Were you vibing at all with, because sometimes I think people hear it's not even reluctance, like just talking about quarterback play and what's going to happen. Like I just don't make any assumptions in sports. I don't care what any accolades people come in with. Like it's hard
until you see it.
Yeah,
it's
just hard to come in and play at a high level. Do you think it's the same person if I said, who does Nebraska play when who can play the best when things aren't going well, and who do they need to play if things are progressing well?
As a quarterback?
Yeah. Are they the same person?
Ideally, yes. Right?
Sure, but
but
I if it was ideals, I clearly wouldn't ask the question either.
So in my mind, I think based on what we've seen in high school, which is all we really have to go off of with DK and Ravi, right? There's nothing else. I think DK needs more to be going right for him to be successful, just based on what I saw last year, right? Sometimes the offensive line got a little muddy. He had some injuries at receiver, he struggled at times last year for Bellevue West. I think he needs more to go right than. And listen, I saw Daniel Kalen play in high school more than I saw Dylan Raiola, right? I saw some highlights. I saw some clips of games whole. I think I watched one whole Dylan Raiola game that I found online. That's about it. So I don't
outside of whatever the Polynesian Bowl was, which was not really
right. Yeah, like that doesn't even count really. So that's like the high school Pro Bowl. I don't even know what to do with that. So I obviously don't have the same frame of reference for Dylan as I do with DK, but it seemed like more was going right for Dylan's team than it did for Bellevue West at times, at least when I saw him. And B, it seemed like maybe he didn't need as much to go right. I think the thing that we are hoping for with Dylan, and this may or may not be accurate, is that he's got a little bit of that improvisation in the pocket, a little bit of the, and I don't know if he's overly mobile, but has the pocket presence. Not really so much of a scrambler as a guy that can move around by himself sometime, climb the pocket, and then make throws. That's what I think you're looking for from Dylan. And so I would say Dylan is probably the guy that needs the least to go right in order to be successful out of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, that's not a super educated answer because we haven't seen really anything from him. But that's the perception I get.
So here's the thing. You have an older, mature offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
You could have two veteran wide receivers that you've got out of the portal.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an older, experienced running back room.
Mm-hmm.
Right? An older, experienced tight end room.
Mm-hmm.
How can we undersell the ability to lead and command the huddle? That's going to be one of the things that a young quarterback, if it's a young quarterback, has got to be able to do.
Sure. Just
right?
the intangibles of the position.
Yeah, we don't even talk about it. Like it's a thing. Like because I've seen it firsthand. And I'm not saying everybody's going to have T. Fraze's production. Mm-hmm. But he did come in with a certain mindset, right? If you're a true freshman and you're telling Lance Lundberg and some of these guys in the huddle, I got this. This is my huddle. Or the year after when Zach's a senior and T. Fraze is a sophomore, and it's like, hey, man, shut up, right? Wiegert, I'll do such and such and such and such. Yeah, that'll have to wait till after practice. But for right now, this is my huddle, right? You know what I mean? Like, There's a lot of that has to happen if you want to play and have success early. Or the other alternative is to have a very mature team that is okay to helping a young guy along,
Bring him along,
and bringing him along. So like those two if you're gonna go young at the quarterback spot with an older team, is definitely something we don't talk near enough about. And I get it; it's not everybody's vantage point, but it's important.
No, I agree, and it is something that you don't really hear about. But I think it's because we don't really know. Right now, that doesn't stop us from talking about, like I just did, other stuff we don't know about. But it's something we're even.
I just think we don't think about it.
Yeah, it's probably fair.
I just don't. I have yet to hear anybody talk about that as kind of like a thing, but
That's a variable in the situation.
But it's a thing,
right? Because either you have to have a guy who commands the respect, or that is okay, maybe not leading from the front, right? And those are two different things.
And your team has to be built a certain way
to help
a quarterback not
be the forefront.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you know what's funny, and Sam said Iowa had kind of the secret sauce. Their quarterbacks, and maybe some of this was what I was hearing, like on those recruiting trips and stuff, like when it was just players only and we were talking, like at the quarterback spot, confidence and leadership were not a problem. Maybe his play was
his ability,
but he definitely commanded that room. And so I'm just thinking, like, I think that's interesting because it has to go with however else your team is built. It can't be a separate thing. And I think that's how they made it work. I do.
In Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they have they look to have good leadership and good presence from that spot.
So obviously you've got
and it's not anything dependent on the play, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So obviously Dylan a little bit through your relationships. DK a little bit through your relationships. Do either one of those guys strike you as one way versus the other, or have you not seen enough?
I don't know enough about Dylan's personality, but I think Danny has some natural kind of like he wants to take charge.
You kind of saw that with the peer recruiting and the way people.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like,
him a little bit.
I haven't seen it through crunch time to know if it's situational or that's really who he is.
Well, and it's two different things, right? You can be one way off the field and be a different way in the huddle, right? So,
Lord knows I've seen it.
He might be this super charismatic guy going out. And it seems like he is. Seems like he's very well liked. Seems like he was a big part.
They both appear to be really well liked,
which is a huge positive, right? But it seems like he's kind of a very outgoing, with the peer recruiting and all that kind of stuff, where there are some, it seems like, natural leadership skills there, but you don't know if that translates to the huddle.
I got a glimpse into Dylan just with his interactions with Caleb, and this was before he got here. So this was building over time, right? I was telling him about social media stuff and accounts and all that, but so I don't worry about the good-natured part, but I just think the dynamics of this quarterback job. So this is why I say this, like, yeah, DB, like all these hypotheticals. Number one, again, I'm always going to try to approach this from a coach's standpoint. I remember Coach Rule said something. This was maybe Harburg's second start, and we thought that Sims may be closer to being healthy. You know what he said? He said the guys respond differently to Harburg when he's in the huddle.
Yep.
He said you can't see it, but you feel it when he takes command of the huddle.
Well, he also said another thing.
And so I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. He's noticing it. That's going to be the nod. That let me know that we can stop second guessing who's going to.
About the Sims thing.
Yep.
Well, he also said something else that I think can apply both on field and in the huddle is you don't know until you put a guy out there.
Yeah. Well, that's the easy part,
right?
Because you can see the results.
But I think that also applies to in the huddle, right? You don't know what they look like in the huddle until you put them in that position.
The moxie and the command of the huddle is.
Because the actual gameplay, of course, you don't know till you know. But I think in the huddle, it's the same thing.
That's gonna
you don't know till you're in that spot.
Yep.
We'll have more on this coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We'll be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're on KFOR in Lincoln for this 9 o'clock hour. It is that time of year. It's time for you to make your prop card selections. We have a Final Four set, which is news to me. I thought the basketball season was over, but it is not. The Final Four is set. Go make your prop card selections at warhorsecasino.com to be eligible for the $100,000 prop card challenge. 25 prop questions, get 18 or more correct, and you have a chance to win cash or free play. You have from now until April 5th to make those prop card selections and to go activate those entries at the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln. You have to activate them in person at the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln between now and April 5th. Go to warhorsecasino.com for a full list of house rules and details. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Want to hop back into this conversation we were having about spring ball and quarterbacks and all this, because I had a thought about the quarterback position as well, and I was wondering, because you keep asking this question, are we gonna be okay if Dylan's not the guy? Game one, right? August 31st, they roll out. It's not Dylan for whatever reason. Do you think the reaction is different if it's Daniel Kalen versus if it's Heinrich Haarberg?
Yes, but probably not for the reason you think.
Okay, go ahead.
I think if it's and make no mistake about it, I think Raiola is clearly the leader.
Yes.
Right now.
Yeah.
If I think Nebraska staff had their way. Okay. I think
their lives are easier if he makes him clear that he's the starter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
That's a better way to say it. But I think the fans would be willing, I think, to be patient for a game or two or whatever, the way that the schedule's going to break. If it's Haarberg and it's like, okay, he's going to, we're going to ease into this. But I knowing it's coming, because I think Haarberg would take the moving on and the place holding a little bit better as an older, more experienced guy, even though he's only got 8 starts.
And a guy that maybe has other options in terms of positionality.
That's the thing, right?
Okay.
He can, his career, he can still help you win games in other places, even though they're like, oh, we've seen this before. I think if it were DK, and this isn't, not people have a hard time hearing, but so let me explain this slow. This is not the opinion of what I think their talent level is. This is what I feel the perception would be. The perception would be if he's beaten out by another freshman, somebody of the same age, then they won't give credit to the guy that beat him out. They will say that he's not as good as he was made out to be. That's what I think the difference would be.
So I agree with the logic. I landed in a different place.
Most people would, but I mean, it's just this. That's
I
just
get what you're saying.
That's just my opinion.
I get what you're saying for sure.
But again, that's what I would think of as a coach. It's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's easier.
I'm not a fan
to explain. I mean, you are a fan.
I am a fan.
Think like a fan.
Yeah, I just don't think. Yeah,
there's a difference, right?
100%.
You can put the different hats on. I think
I'm always going to think like a coach.
Yeah, and I think people,
even when it's my own family.
Yeah,
I did it in basketball at Millard North. I did it.
Yeah,
I'm always gonna think like a coach.
So I arrived at a different conclusion using mostly the same, mostly the same thinking, right? Because I agree that the fan base is going to look at what Dylan didn't do versus what the other guy did do, right? Like, I don't think whether it's Haarberg,
it's usually the case,
whether it's Kalen, whatever, right? It's going to be looked at as like, oh, is Dylan not as good as we thought he was? Did he do something wrong? Is he not ready to go the way he thought he was? Where I think because of what we saw last year with Haarberg, it would be worse because we feel like we know what Haarberg is, right? You sit there and you go, okay, I saw this movie already. I have no interest in a repeat viewing. I know what Haarberg is, even if he's gotten better, right? Which we would like to think that he has, right?
Well, there's no question he will.
Good coaching, more reps, all of this stuff, right? Like, Heinrich Haarberg probably going to be a better quarterback this year than he was last year. I don't think that's a hot take. But instead of looking at that, we're going to look at, we know what we saw from Haarberg. We have to assume, quote unquote, we have to assume that if this is what Harburg is, and we're going off of last year, and he gets to start over both Kalen and Raiola, but specifically Raiola, then it's a disaster on our hands with Raiola. Where I think if you've got two guys that are totally unknowns with Kalen and Raiola, you can talk yourself into Kalen just being ahead for now.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
Does that make sense? Does it make sense how people would get there?
Yes, it doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah,
though.
it's not how you would approach it.
So,
but I think from a fan standpoint, I think it'd be easier to swallow. And you already said you're not thinking about it as a fan, and that's fine. I think from a fan standpoint, it's easier to swallow if DK gets the nod over Raiola than if it were Heidrich Harburg.
So the one thing I think that's a little, what we're afraid, we got to say the quiet part out loud.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that watched Bellevue West the last couple of years and will have separated Elite 11 from actual games. Mm-hmm. They're like, listen, this is a guy that was 14-8. People were going to talk about what he didn't have, his offensive. Like, he gets a lot of the, he didn't have this, he didn't have that. This guy was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And some of that may be true. But where I'm landing this is some people, especially locally, feel like they've seen so much of him. Mm-hmm. They have their mind made up.
Sure.
He's either this or he's that, whatever that is, right? And we're not willing to introduce development or getting better
or better coaching,
even though that's all we want from this staff. Yeah. Hey, just develop guys. But we're not willing to do that.
Like maybe Glenn Thomas comes in and he really is a quarterback, like a really good quarterback coach, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what he does for a living. He was doing it at the NFL level. Like maybe he really is that good at what he does.
Yeah, because I mean, like if we're standing out here in this parking lot and you watch him spin the ball, he can spin it as well as anyone.
With anybody, right?
Okay, that's safe. So whatever has to happen where we get to see that on the field.
That translates to actual gameplay.
That there's still time for that to happen.
And there's something there to work with, right?
Yeah. So I guess it's not an indictment on his talent. I'm talking to people on how they're viewing this quarterback thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not my opinion. This is how we're going to look at this because people locally have seen so much, they will react a certain way if this happens because we're very particular. We're very particular about when we want to use. It's like selective objectivity, if that even makes sense. We're willing to be objective until it doesn't fit what I think I already know.
Yeah. Well, it's the confirmation bias thing I talked about earlier.
But it doesn't. See, there's very few that are qualified enough to stand on that business, though.
100%. Right? I also think that there's the vast majority of Nebraska football fans probably did not watch Daniel Kalen in high school. The vast majority. Right?
I'm with you.
There's a lot of people that have.
Or Dylan, for that matter.
Yes.
Not real games.
No, for sure. Either they saw highlights and the Polynesian Bowl, or that's it.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that just proves that's we know we think we know too much.
Yeah, and we know almost nothing at all.
And so we're going to critique this the whole way through. And do you know who rolls their eyes the most?
Coaches.
The coaches.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here we go. Like just let them. Let this thing play out. Just. Because I don't know if you're following recruiting, still making 2025 offers, still making 2026. Like this thing's going to go on.
Yeah, regardless.
No
matter what happens.
So like the arriving at predetermined thought processes is I'm trying to keep that from getting a thing. Because do we fully trust? Do we only partially trust?
Well, that's what it comes back to, right? This conversation of how much do we trust Rule, right? Because you brought this up a couple weeks ago. It's even more true now, right? Because Rule has taken on an even larger
presence
in the athletic department.
You better trust him.
Because of the events that have happened. It sort of seems like he hired the new athletic director. I don't know if maybe I'm putting too fine a point on it. That kind of seems like he hired the new athletic director. So he's got a really outsized presence in this athletic department. And I used this analogy last week. A monarchy is great as long as you have a good king, right? If Rule's a good king, if he has good judgment, if he makes good decisions, having him be the head of your monarchy is terrific. If all of a sudden Maybe his judgment isn't as clear as we'd like it to be. Maybe some of the decisions don't work out the way we want them to be. All of a sudden, we want a democracy, right? That's how things tend to work, because he's in a position where he could have virtually unchecked power in this athletic department.
Keep going.
Right?
Well, yeah.
And unchecked power is really dangerous because you are counting on one individual to be essentially infallible, whether it's in their actual decisions or at least in their process of making those decisions.
I said that on Betting Bites one episode. I was just like, I'm just praying for good discernment, right?
Mhm.
Just good protection,
Which you've said all along,
and good stewardship.
Which you've said all along, discernment may be his best quality.
Yep.
So we might be okay here.
But he's his own barometer.
Yes.
I don't know enough about like his peers.
Mhm. We also don't know enough about outside of football stuff, right?
Yeah.
We think he has really good discernment with people and with coaches and with players and all this other stuff.
Like there's a couple of guys I would love, Sean, I talk about Sean Patton. Like he's one of those guys I would just like to, the more time I would spend around him, I feel like the more I would clean up, and he's got just enough good balance because he's got some real grinders, like Ryan Callahan or Vince Ginta or Keith Williams, like these guys, the behind the scene guys that are kind of like that do the dirty, they do the execution of the visions.
Yeah, they're the scaffolding.
That's pretty good. That I love. Like those three. Like I like those guys a ton.
They're the rebar that everything is built on top of.
And I think they'll work hard. They work hard.
I make that assumption about anybody that works for Rule because it seems like he's made that pretty clear that if you're not a grinder, you're not going to fit here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I assume everybody that works for him now is a super hard worker.
So the quarterback thing is just one of a few pieces because we can't ever decide which way we want it. If it's CJ Stroud, it's because he has good players, right? If it's Justin Fields, oh, look who he was throwing to. Right. But if it's JJ McCarthy, it's, I don't know. I mean, could anybody have done it?
Right.
He won 12. So it's like, well, which is it? Do we want a guy that's supremely talented that's playing with other good players or do we want a guy that can elevate the play of those
all by himself?
Yeah, we don't even know. So, and all I'm trying to do is alleviate headaches at the end.
And we're talking about Caleb Williams versus Justin Fields or Caleb Williams versus CJ Stroud, right?
We just heard the kind of the low key, subtle. Well, it actually wasn't very subtle. I mean, when Sam said Bo Nix,
yeah,
right? Like he all but questioned. I think it sounded like he all but questioned Bo Nix's talent because he played with a lot of good players. He's going to get a lot of those guys in the NFL too.
But guess what? None of those guys are any better than the players that Michael Penix played with, at least a receiver, right?
Yeah, with the Dunes. Yeah, he had a couple.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had three, actually.
He had three really good receivers. He had a good running back that was banged up in the national championship game. And he had what was awarded the best offensive line in the country.
I just don't know why we can't.
You know what I mean?
Why we don't know how to to take in information about quarterback play. We want it to be like this.
Can I be honest with you? There's too many variables. People.
So if that's the case, then why don't we just chill?
Because that's not how people are wired. People have an opinion about everything.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. People have an opinion about everything. And when there's too many variables, we try and simplify it.
There's a lot of schools that win a lot of games that don't have fantastic quarterback play that I would like to be. And I can say that without saying I don't want fantastic quarterback play.
Yeah. I mean, Michigan's a great example, right?
Like, wouldn't it be nice while you're waiting for your quarterback to develop that you're so good in other areas
that you can win anyway?
That you can buy yourself some time.
That you can get, like, what I would love to happen
is Nebraska be elite defensively and be elite on special teams to give yourself some cushion. That'd be awesome.
And have a functional running game and it doesn't have to be. And I'd prefer
we don't look at running backs that way. Like,
no.
So this is what we would do if Ramir Johnson. He won't because he's not an every down back. But
call it Emmett Johnson. He might be an every down back, maybe.
No, let's say Gabe Irvin won the job at running back.
Okay.
We would immediately have an opinion about Dowdell.
Sure. Yeah, we do it everywhere.
We don't treat quarterbacks the same way, though.
Well, yeah, we do. If Daniel Kalen wins the job, we'll immediately have an opinion on Dylan Raiola.
This is what I'm only because of the way that I just framed the discussion. If you think about it the way that I'm trying to explain that it could happen, that's how all the other positions happen. It's just that when it's quarterback, we make these grand indictments about talent level. If it's, let's say, when LP won the job, it wasn't that we were bad. It was that he was really good.
He was the best of a good bunch.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Why come quarterbacks can't be that way?
Part of it, I think, right.
No,
it's fair. It's a fair question. It is. I think part of it right now is also that Nebraska hasn't been winning. And so we assume something about the overall talent level of the program.
That's fair.
And
I'll at least entertain that.
Right. So I think that, and this is me processing this real time. I think that part of it is we assume, since Nebraska's not winning very much, that if you can't even win a job for this team, then there's something wrong with you.
But has this staff ever talked about needing to be dynamic at quarterback?
They talked a little bit last year about wanting the quarterback run game to be an
Have
element.
they ever talked about the output, what they need?
No.
Okay.
Not about output.
Right. We do, though.
Yes. Because I think we watch and we say, hey, all the teams that win championships have really good quarterback play.
So what if we don't like J.J. McCarthy?
No, but he's also the outlier in the last handful of years. He's the most of an outlier in the last handful of years. Everybody else, your Bryce Youngs, your Trevor Lawrences, all those guys were hugely productive in college. J.J. McCarthy is kind of the outlier. Michigan in general, the way they played, is the outlier in our most recent national champions.
Interesting.
Now, even Stetson Bennett, who I don't love as a talent.
Because they just beat a team with a quarterback
they beat
really good, and they have a lot of skill.
They beat their brains in.
Okay.
They beat everybody's brains in.
But,
right?
Yeah.
We look at even like a Stetson Bennett, who talent-wise isn't in the same category as those first-round guys.
So he's the guy that I was talking about when I said you have to be able to command a huddle.
But hugely productive.
Listen, you have to be able to command the huddle.
And he obviously did, right?
Those guys would do – he was unquestionably the backbone of that offense.
100%.
With all those other guys that were getting drafted.
100%.
So we
and a bunch of 4- and 5-star quarterbacks that couldn't beat him out for a job.
We undersell it. So he's either a lot better than we thought, or he's either the most amazingly emotionally gifted leader of the last 15 years in the SEC.
And maybe a little bit of both. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah,
maybe we look at his stature and we go, oh, he can't be that good, which is what I do. I'll admit that. And maybe he's also one of the best leaders the SEC or college football scene in a decade.
I just think
both of those things might be true.
I just think we undersell it.
You're probably right, but it's we undersell everything that we can't see.
Well, and I'm not holding 95% of the public accountable to it, because you don't know unless you see Anthony Rizak command the huddle. You have no idea how important that is. Unless you see T. Fraze command the huddle, you have no idea how important that is. Unless you see a guy that is ultra talented and can hit any spot on a football field throwing a ball, not be able to command the huddle like Kerry Collins, you don't know how important that is. So all these things have shaped my thought process, and I want everybody to think like that, but I just know it's not. Number one, it's way too myopic. It makes zero sense, but it's one of the things that I could always gravitate towards. Why I'm no fun to talk about these conversations with, because
well, here's the other problem.
Dylan could be a fantastic kid and a fantastic talent, and he may not be ready to lead
to do what he's
an offensive line that's going to have more starts than any other offensive line in the conference. More starts than any other offensive line in the conference, and the 18-year-old is going to have to command that huddle. It's not an indictment.
No. It would take an incredibly special and mature 18-year-old for that to be feasible.
And then the staff has to look at that and say, okay, we're going to turn this over to you. This is your team. Go. And he's the youngest guy out there.
Now,
that's not a talent thing. That's sometimes you just need time.
Yeah, it's a maturity thing. It's a growth thing.
Now, if he's if he's ready,
if he's that dude already, you got something.
Then you've got some. So we just don't know.
But you also have this situation on the flip side of the coin that you described earlier, that maybe you can put him out there and let everybody else lead if he's got the mentality to be able to do that, right? To be able to defer a little bit while he learns. And I think that's probably the more likely scenario, at least early, right? You give him these little opportunities to lead or whatever, but the offensive line, who's maybe the unit with the fewest questions on that side of the ball.
All right. So, for example, right? I'm Harburg. We're in the huddle. Hey, jump right. Y rabbit. Z stick. Foxtrot on one. You good? You good? Ready? Break. Okay. You break the huddle, offensive line, whatever. Kalen comes in. Hey, let's go Fox right. Y rabbit. Finish the play, right? The next guy comes in. Hey, let's go Fox right. Hey, do you want Y rabbit, right? You check. See, that's part of commanding the huddle. Because it's not so much about what you don't know. It's more about what those other guys, how they feel confident that regardless of what they do, that you've still got it. Right? Like that's part of the allure of playing championship caliber football. But we don't talk about that when we talk about Elite 11s or Polynesian Bowls or only 8 career starts or coming out of Kearney Catholic or wherever, that I think is so paramount in being a good football team, because that's what happens in nut cutting time. It's not when it's 14-0 in the first quarter. It's what happens at 3rd and 6 with 4 minutes to go, and you need a 4-minute drive.
What happens when you're
so those things take time.
It's what happens when you're inside the 5-yard line multiple times with the chance to win games this season and can't get it done.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what you're talking about here. Now, the other part of that is I think Nebraska, Coach Rule specifically, would love to be in a position where they don't have to rely on a quarterback.
I think ideally that's what he would want.
I think he wants to be able to win 8 or 9 games a year with super average quarterback play.
And then get the important 1 or 2 because your quarterback's really good?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You don't want to be a USC situation where you win 8 or 9 because your quarterback's otherworldly.
I completely agree with you.
I think you want to win 8 or 9 because you're a really damn good football
team. And I
team.
think he'd take it too, even if game to game. Just give me 4 or 5 plays that you make.
100%.
And we'll be good the rest of the way.
We're going to take care of it 80% of the time.
Yep.
20% of the time, I need you to make a play.
I think that's what they want.
We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Yeah, they're gonna get a guy that's gonna help to allow me to become better, super blessed, and they're gonna get a winner. Yeah, they're gonna get a guy that's
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Cleanup on aisle 6.
It's the Sports Cleanup.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as live from the Pillar Exterior stage. And we're brought to you by the Team Jack Foundation. Go to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved with this very important cause. They're just trying to find better treatments for kids fighting brain cancer and one day a cure, because the current treatments are almost 50 years old. They're highly toxic. And even if a child survives the brain tumor, they're often left with debilitating issues because of the treatments they had to go just to beat the brain cancer. Team Jack Foundation is trying to find a better way and trying to find a cure. Over $12 million to date raised and counting. You can get involved directly. Donate teamjackfoundation.org. You can find the events. You can also find what great programs and national institutions they're involved with the projects they're currently funding. That's teamjackfoundation.org. So we're going to clean up really a conversation we were having last segment because it's more interesting than all the other stuff that I was going to get to.
It's just a fascinating dynamic.
So
quarterbacks.
We're talking about quarterbacks. We're talking about being able to command a huddle at 18 years old. We're talking about, how you don't really know until you see that guy in that situation. And it doesn't matter if you're up 14-0. Like, they probably didn't know Jeff Sims wasn't that guy until they're down at Minnesota, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
They probably have no idea.
They saw it. I mean, because I know people are going to say, well, he saw it at Georgia Tech. But remember,
but you're not there.
And here's the caveat though.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches coach because they think
They can change people.
You'll be better with me.
Yeah.
That argument used to drive. Well, we saw it at Georgia Tech. Guess what?
Conditions are different.
Yeah. Guess what? Teachers get kids with
they got
bad folders.
They got a whole file full of folder of bad things about this kid,
and
they all believe the good ones believe they can make it better.
Yep, get them with me.
Right.
Yep.
It's like every coach that's where you see him sign people that didn't work out other places. Like that's just part of being a coach. So I agree with you 100% there. But here's my question, right? Let's say you're in a situation where I don't think anybody's expected Nebraska to compete for a national championship this year. Is that fair?
That's fair.
I think people would love if you get to 8 or 9 wins. That'd be a hugely successful season for Nebraska. So the question to me isn't, okay, is the quarterback persona, whatever you want to call it, the quarterback intangibles to a place where they can win a championship? Do you need that?
You're talking about the mental toughness that I'm talking about?
The mental toughness, the being able to control a huddle, all of that stuff, right? We'll call it the Anthony Rizak stuff because that's a real tangible example that we've had here locally, where it gets down to it. You guys are in a weird spot. You know Anthony Rizak's taking control of that huddle, and you have no worries about it, right? Do you have to be that guy to get to that 8 or 9 wins, or do you only need that guy to get to 11 or 12 and be competing for a championship?
That's a fantastic question. So, let's say for this year, and some people kind of laughed. I was talking to you and AR, and we were talking about expectation levels for Dylan. And I said, hey, just go, 2,700, whatever, 23 and 8. Just manage the game. Some people are like, oh, you want a 5-star to be a game man? No, I don't.
No, but those would be great numbers for a true freshman.
That's not what it's not the ceiling.
No, that's where you start.
That's the floor.
The ground floor.
Why did I say that? Because you have a very veteran-laden offensive line. Okay, you're going to have a very good defense. You typically don't win close games. So just stay in games and then make the 4 or 5 plays that you got to make as a quarterback, as a place kicker, as a defense to make a tackle on 3rd down.
Make those throws in the end zone when you're at the 5-yard line that are touchdowns instead of picks.
Make a tackle on 4th down when you can get a quarterback to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Do those little things, right? And as a quarterback, be able to play catch. So I'm not saying I just want you to be a game manager. What I'm telling you is I want the team to be built around you where you don't have to be spectacular as a young guy. So do you need those amazing attributes early? You hope not. You hope that you up front you're good enough. Your running game is a good complementary friend when it's about 24 degrees the second week in November, and you got to run the football or you have the salt clock.
Got a 30-mile-an-hour wind.
And it's a weird discussion because you would never you're not going to go to Dylan or whomever and you're not going to say, hey, listen, don't be great. Just
keep us in it.
Just get by. Just keep us in it.
Yeah. Don't lose it for us.
Okay. You're not.
That's not a conversation you have.
But that is really what you want early on with this football team.
So how do you frame that? Do you say, hey, we want to play mistake-free football?
So you don't individualize the outcome. You talk generally about what the team desires. Hey, we want to take care of the football. Hey, we want to be a good 3rd down conversion team. Hey, we want to be able to run the ball at 4.6 a carry. Hey, we want to get off the field at a 32% clip. Hey, when it's 3rd and 8, we need to be about 25% to get these guys off the field. We want to. So you have very specific goals, but it's general to the unit. You can talk directly to quarterbacks and talk about ball handling and taking care of the ball, mental toughness, without taking away or minimizing what the goal is. You can be very specific about the outcome and speak generally about how to get there. It's how you practice where the specifics come in of practical application.
So let me throw in another.
Okay, you need to listen, fellas. Hey, Thursday in our high intensity set with 3rd and longs, we got to complete better than 17. We got to convert more than 17%. I'm totally making these numbers up, right? But hey, or you conversely on Friday when you're doing when you're run through, it's like, hey, remember yesterday those high stress competitive situations? We're about 81%, fellas. Like when we execute, we're this. Then you can drill it down to the finer points.
So let me throw another variable in here. You've got young quarterback, right?
Yeah.
At the very least, you're going to have an inexperienced quarterback because best case scenario, you've got
a guy with 8 starts,
right?
or a guy with no starts.
Yeah. You've got either a true freshman, whether it's DK or Dylan, or you've got a guy with 8 total starts who most people want to be a tight end, right? Like that's your quarterback room. Or you have a walk-on if, God forbid, knock on wood here. But so that's your quarterback room, right? So you have an inexperienced quarterback regardless of what happens. Is there a place where the team culture, we hear that all the time, right, can be set enough that the young or the inexperienced QB can, as long as he's a good part of that team culture, can get by on that until he matures to the point where he can be a leader.
100%.
Because that's what you're hoping for right now, right?
That's
what you're hoping for this year one for one of these quarterbacks, right? I'm assuming year one, right? Maybe Harburg starts. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Until then, I'm going to assume one of the 2 true freshmen is going to start because I think that's what the coaching staff wants to happen, right? So you're hoping in year one to get to 8 or 9 wins, right? Let's be realistic here. To get to 8 or 9 wins, which I think is what the coaching staff is looking at. They're not going to say that out loud because they're going to say, hey, we're going to try and win every game, whatever. I get it, whatever, right?
You think internally the discussion is 9?
I think internally the discussion is win every game. I don't think they look at that schedule and see a single game on that schedule that's not winnable. I think in their deepest, darkest recesses of their honesty, they're like, yeah, if we get to 9, we had a pretty good year.
Obviously, I want to win.
I think. Right?
I go back to when you make no mistake, we're going to win at an elite level.
I don't know when, but we're going to win at an elite level, right? That's his line, right? So if you're being realistic, you're talking about 8, 9 wins. I think you're talking about, hey, let's make sure this team culture is set, right? And then you're talking about a young, inexperienced QB. I think if you're being realistic, you don't expect him to be able to take. And listen, if he does from day one, you know you got something special, right? But I don't think you throw it away if you're like, hey, he needs a little time, right? A lot of guys need a little time. A lot of guys don't have it at 18.
Or just to go through it, right?
Yeah.
You need a little seasoning. Not to go all Kwame Brown. But
a lot of guys need, 8, 10, 12 starts before they start to feel like they have a good enough grasp on things to be a leader.
Yeah,
right?
and those first couple of years, you saw flashes from McNamara and McCarthy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think McNamara,
even though the team was being built the same around both guys.
I think McNamara was probably a better leader than he was a quarterback, and I think J.J. McCarthy was both. Right? I think McCarthy had the ability to back up the culture and the leadership that Michigan needed in order to take that next step. I think Cade McNamara is a quintessential good Iowa quarterback. Really good leadership, good enough physically, probably not winning you a national title.
He gave a really good example off air that I thought landed the plane for me in terms of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The difference between C.J. Stroud and Justin Fields.
Yeah, physically, I think there's no difference. Not significant.
But you just get the sense
that C.J. Stroud is a different cat.
Yeah. And he's the one that was kind of the more malign coming out about
100%.
He
played with too many good players.
Yeah.
And he arguably went to a worse situation and was better faster.
And had some come from behinds too.
We've got Russell Baxter coming up next.
will be back. We will be back.
Yeah.
We will be back.
Yeah.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, they're going to get a guy that's going to help lift the team up, help elevate everybody around them. That's why I feel like I've been able to do it two different places, and I've been super blessed to be able to have great players around me, to help up my game, continue to allow me to become better day in and day out. So I'm just super blessed, and they're going to get a winner.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and live from the Pillar Exterior stage, where we are joined now by Russell Baxter. He's an NFL historian. You can find his work on NFL FanSided as well. Russell, how are you this morning?
I'm doing terrific, and that's not an April Fool's Day joke. So.
Well, we're glad to hear that.
Russell, let me ask you something, and I get the interviewing process, right, for the draft, but Ravi and I have been having these, it's become kind of anecdotal now, these conversations about quarterbacks moving up and down the board without really having done much in pads, right? The Bo Nix movement or the J.J. McCarthy or, what's now going on. It appears after this weekend that May's a good quarterback again, right? Now he's locked in that too. Like when you're watching confirmation on quarterbacks, why does it, I know it's difficult, but why does the thought process of what we're actually looking at or want seem so fickle?
Because I honestly believe, and it's just my own opinion, it's not anything I've discussed with guys in the process and so on. And I've had the experience to work with some guys who were, the draft nicks, like the Mel Kipers and all that, but also a guy like Daniel Jeremiah, who's actually a scout in the National Football League and so on. But my own theory is, I think there's just that fear of making a mistake, and how it can set you back. And now I think we have seen in recent years, teams, when they have made what they think is a mistake, wasting no time erasing it. Okay? Josh Rosen is the one that comes to mind almost immediately with the Cardinals, top 10 pick. I think he started 14 games for them. They shipped him off to Miami, and they took Kyler Murray with the first overall pick a year ago. Trey Lance about a year ago and so on, third overall pick. Discarded him. I don't put Justin Fields so much in that category because he actually played substantially for 3 years. Okay. And I think the opportunity to get Caleb Williams plays, I think, is much a part of what the Bears are doing because, the Bears last year were 7-6 in their last 13 games. They were a much better football team than the team that lost 14 games in a row at one time. In fact, they put pretty good spanking on the Detroit Lions at Soldier Field late in the year. So they were definitely making strides in that regard. But I think that's what I think it is. It's that fear. It's interesting. I track head coaching changes, but I also track coordinator changes. The last couple of years, I've almost had to track general manager changes because you see a bunch of them come and go now in the off season as well.
Russell, can I make the argument that missing on a quarterback early is less damaging now than it's ever been? Now that, because I remember back in the day when you talk about like a Matthew Stafford or a Jamarcus Russell, and you had to pay him, or Sam Bradford, I think was the last one, right? You had to pay him this exorbitant amount of money. Now it's okay. Yeah, you wasted a pick there, right? Like the 49ers wasted a pick that could have gone on like Micah Parsons, I think, or whoever else. But the 49ers are doing just fine. And I know it's kind of an outlier, but it doesn't cost you nearly as much as it used to, right?
Well, no, you're spot on because financially it doesn't. As far as the progress of your football team, it still can. So that to me is the difference. Back then, you're right. I mean, Sam Bradford was the last guy in 2010. Jamarcus Russell was 2007, even going back to the Ryan Leaf days, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, 1998, and so on. So it is, but the development of quarterback. Here's the other thing: the development of quarterbacks in college now. There's a lot more to choose from. Okay, and they're not all going to be Patrick Mahomes. Okay, but they could be a Nick Foles. And they could be a very efficient guy to get the job done. And, I still believe, and this is a team game concept, as far as much credit as Mahomes and Brady have gotten over the last couple of years, and I'm not taking anything away from them. I mean, these guys are legendary players. Patrick Mahomes is already a legendary player, okay? Keep in mind that all 3 Super Bowl wins by the Chiefs with him at quarterback all rallied from double-digit deficits.
Russell, it's been a long time since there's been back-to-back NFC East champs. Listen, Dallas gets all the talk and Philly and whatever, but on a broader scope, who's, in your opinion, when this season is all said and done, who's the best team in the state of Texas?
How about them Texans? Here's what's really interesting about them, and it's one of my favorite things that happens in the league now. We only saw it twice last year. 2 last place teams make the playoff the year later. The year before it was 4. Half the divisions had last place teams that went to the playoffs 1 year after finishing last. Last year it was Houston and Cleveland. Houston actually won the division. Dallas is a supremely talented team in a lot of aspects. But they've also seen this offseason some big-time defection.
Yeah.
And, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, they've got that, Bueller thing going. But still no NFC, much less the Super Bowl, still no NFC title game since 1995. And that's how dismal they've been in the court. By the way, I hope we're not all blaming Dak Prescott on that.
No.
Okay. Considering how old was he then? About 8. So, but no, I mean, no one's repeated in the NFC East since the Eagles won 4 in a row from 2001 to 2004. So we're talking like 20 years. We waited almost 20 years for a repeat Super Bowl champion. Winning the NFC East is probably harder than winning the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, as it's turned out, and so on. But you look at what's and call me the next time a Dallas Cowboys joins the Washington Commanders. By the way, but that's not unusual at all. But anyway, go back to the Texans for a second. Last year was a free agent bonanza for them. And I truly believe, now keep in mind, the previous 3 years before last year, the Texans went 11-38-1. Last year alone, they won 11 games if you include the playoff route of the Browns. And the thing that struck me about the offseason, same general manager, Nick Caserio, who was there for a couple of years, but D'Amico Ryan, there seemed to be an underlying tone around the league. I want to go play for this guy.
Yeah.
And you just sensed it. And you're seeing it again this year. Look at their free agent haul. Daniel Hunter. Okay. They traded for Joe Mixon.
Remember when we didn't like the Texans ownership group and we were like, D'Amico, no, I know you played there, but there's going to be better jobs. Don't do it. And it's like, yeah, I got this, guys. Just relax. Remember those days, Russell?
But and listen, they laid some eggs last year. Okay, don't get me wrong. They had some bad games. I mean, they played well in the division. They won. I believe they won every game on the road in the division last year. Okay, and it's funny because even when they were bad these last couple of years, they were almost like a 500 team in the division, which I think that probably speaks something for the AFC South, to be bluntly honest with you. So, but there seemed to be, and I honestly believe that Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots ownership was hoping to do and is hoping to get the same results from doing what they did in hiring Gerard Mayo.
Well, are they going to take a quarterback?
Huh?
Are they going to take a quarterback?
Well, I hope so. I mean,
these rumors that
they better.
Listen, I got news for you. If you think you're now going to get more information out of the New England Patriots that Bill Belichick is on, okay, you got a better chance of finding Matt Damon in the Bourne Identity. Okay,
good. I like that, Russell.
Listen, Robert Kraft has as we have seen, and I always, it's funny. I go back to the 30 and 30 with Parcells and Belichick, and listening to Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft has a lot more hands in that thing, I think, than people realize. And I think even more so in these last couple of years. So I think but I think they need to. I mean, listen, they got such a great 6th round pick for Mac Jones from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, talk about a team that's swung and missed. Okay, but again, that had a lot to do with other factors that were going on as well. So, here's the other thing what you learn about quarterbacks. If you know a team is getting ready to get rid of one, they're going to get rid of them regardless of the price. Okay, so it's not a position where he can hang around.
Yeah, Denver showed us that, didn't they? That's the extreme example.
Well, I mean, one day I'm waiting for what trade turned out worse, the Trey Lance deal or the Russell Wilson deal? Seriously, you think about the ramifications. Denver hasn't handled it well at all.
No, not so far. Not so far.
I think it's funny. Denver hasn't been in a playoff game since they won Super Bowl 50.
Unbelievable. Russell, we appreciate your time, buddy.
All right, man. You guys have a great day. Enjoy the draft.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio tomorrow.